law and order in need of a major upgrade, a corrupt corporation looking to mass produce robotic police, and a cyborg who will change everything. All of this can only mean one thing. We're comparing Robocop on this episode of Retro vs. Remake.
I'm Reggie Parker.
And I'm Dan Bielek. Welcome to another episode of Retro vs. Remake, the series where we compare movies and their remakes. Join us as we answer the question, should this remake, or in this case, reboot, exist? And today's films are Robocop. Jumping right in, Robocop 1987, starring Peter Weller, Nancy Allen, Ronnie Cox, Kurtwood Smith, Miguel Ferrer, Ray Wise, Robert DeQuay, and Daniel O'Hurley. Directed by Paul Verhoeven, screenplay by Edward Neumeier and Michael Miner, and music by Basil Paul Doris. And, we've done Paul Verhoeven before with Total Recall, and Basil Paul Doris, the composer, has done other episodes. We've done Conan the Barbarian and Red Dawn. Just wanted to throw that out there. Robocop 2014, starring Joel Kinnaman, Gary Oldman, Michael Keaton, Samuel L. Jackson, Abby Cornish, Jackie Earle Haley, Michael K. Williams, and Zach Greener. Directed by Jose Padilla, screenplay by Joshua Zudimer, and Edward Neumeier and Michael Miner do get a credit here, even though they didn't work on it. It's actually sort of based on an early draft they did, so that's why they get a credit. And the music is by Pedro Brofman. Okay, talking Robocop, Reggie. What is your first experience with either film?
Yeah, we were talking a little bit before the podcast, and I was saying that I've seen Robocop, but I feel like when I originally watched Robocop, I saw like bits and pieces of it, right? Like it would be on television somewhere, and I would see a guy get shot to hell, and I was like, oh, that's cool. But like, for some reason, for like most of my life, I had not like cohesively just sat down and watched Robocop, and I've just been faking the funk, for too long. Like obviously, very aware of Robocop, very aware of the Detroit setting, pretty much how it works. But yeah, I don't know. Like I feel like Robocop is held close to a lot of people's heart in a way that it's not quite there for me, but I do appreciate the movie. And to rectify that, when Robocop 2014 came out, I did not see that in theaters because I knew that was not a good idea. But I watched Robocop and was like, okay, I like this. And then I watched Robocop 2014 and I had feelings. You're not supposed to say what feelings. So, yeah, I think it took this reboot for me to finally sit down and really explore the franchise.
Okay, the original Robocop, I did see this when I was very young, way too young to see this. I was probably like 6 or 7 or so, and just the violent deaths have been in my brain forever because of that, especially Alex Murphy's death in the original film. Traumatized me as a little kid. But I watched the original film very young, and then I've watched it many times since. I was a huge Robocop fan. I remember watching the Robocop cartoon when I was growing up. I had Robocop toys when I was growing up. I had the shitty NES game. I even had Robocop 3 for Super Nintendo growing up. So I was well versed in the Robocop world. And for the reboot, I didn't see it in theaters. I did see it sometime, rented it or it was on Netflix or something, or I rented it, I don't remember, but I have seen it once before watching it for this podcast.
I'm in the same boat. I saw it once before this. I just wanted to see kind of this slick kind of reboot. I know Samuel L. Jackson's name was attached to it, so I was like, let's see what they did here.
Yeah, I wanted to see it because Michael Keaton was in it. I was like, oh, okay, my old Batman, so I'll see anything with some Michael Keaton in it. There are some major differences, but it's kind of similar. So before we get into those differences, let's just go over a brief synopsis. A corporate giant is trying to get their robotic police officers on the streets, but they run into a problem. The solution of a cyborg is presented, and all that is needed is a candidate. Alex Murphy is a cop with a wife and a kid. An attempt on his life is made while trying to arrest criminals. Turns out Murphy is a prime candidate for this Robocop program. Once he hits the streets, he's an instant success. Crime goes down and the public loves him. But at what cost? In order to become the perfect crime-fighting robot, Murphy's humanity is lost. He doesn't really remember his past life due to his programming. However, his humanity does come creeping back, and he decides to go after the ones responsible for murdering him. He eventually learns the name of the person pulling all the strings. When he's about to make his arrest, he shuts down due to a failsafe by the ones who made him. With the help of his old partner Lewis, he is able to get revenge for his murder and stop the evil corporation from their plans. The end. So a lot of like small differences, like the names of things. I think like just Alex Murphy and Lewis are the only names that carry over. Even the corporations, like Omnicorp versus OCP, because like Omnicorp is like this other company that's owned by OCP. It's complicated. We'll get to that, I'm sure. But for this comparison, since the plots are pretty much the same, I think we should just do our one-to-one comparison with the characters, the actors, and who better to start with than our titular character, Robocop. We have Peter Weller in the original.
Dead or alive, you are coming with me.
Versus Joel Kinnaman in the reboot.
What the hell did you do to me?
You need to relax.
Take this off me now.
You need to relax.
I need to get out of this thing.
What did you do to me?
All right. Where did you want to start with this, Reggie?
One of the major differences here is that Peter Weller's character is new to the Force, right? So from an introductory standpoint, we're kind of seeing him learn the ropes of this very, very extremely crime-ridden city. I mean, hyper criminal activity happening in old Detroit, new Detroit, one of the Detroits. And I kind of like the idea of just like, it's a little ambiguous with the timeline, but it's like basically Murphy's first day on the job, right? And it makes his interaction with different characters, like the Lewis partner that we'll talk about at some point. I don't know, it feels more like introductory when you film it that way, versus the Joel Kinnaman, who's pretty much like an established member of the Force. Feels like a bit of a hothead, right? Like I'm getting that vibe. Like he's definitely a clean cop, but he sort of plays by his own rules,
right?
And that may or may not have affected his partner. So I don't know. I feel like this remake wants to jump right into the action, and I feel like the original, there's a lot of action, but I think they try to kind of ease you into this universe a bit by making you see how this police department works at the same time as Weller.
Yeah, that's a good point. As Alex Murphy in the original learns this world, we're learning it with him. So like we're going on the journey together, as opposed to the remake where it's like you said, we're in the middle of something and we're sort of playing catch up as to like trying to figure out like who's the good cop, who's the bad cop, and whatnot.
Another major difference is we don't spend a lot of time with Weller not as Robocop.
Right.
Like Weller's like, it's my first day, and then it's like, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Didn't need that guy anyway. Let me see this RoboCop. In some ways, I think that plot device works. That like we don't see much of Weller because it's just like, geez, this city is violent. It tells you more about like the universe that they're in, how quickly and how aggressively he dies, versus like the Kinnaman account where, like you mentioned, we're playing a bit of catch up. There's like dirty cops in the Force, clean, like we have to kind of figure out what they're doing, and we spend some time with Kinnaman and his family, Kinnaman and like his partner, in a way that we just don't get in that original.
Yeah, you're introduced to the family, and you do spend some time with them in the reboot, but it's not a lot. Like, there's not a connection really. Like, I'm not too worried about what's going to happen to his family because I know what's going to happen to Alex Murphy, because we don't really spend too much time with them. Like, we know the kid watches sports with his dad, and that's something they revisit when he's RoboCop, but they don't really, I don't know, they don't really develop that relationship between the family that much. So I don't think it was that necessary. Like what I'm trying to say is what the original did, and just like kind of revealing the family after the fact, after his murder. I think that works pretty well, and then it almost makes it more tragic because you're just learning about this guy's life and just the life he lost.
Right.
So as opposed to the other, where it's like, okay, we already know these two people, and we don't know them that well, and
Yeah, you get this sort of generic family
hmm
unit, right? Like he's a cop. There's his wife. There's his kid. I don't even know what does his wife do. You know,
yeah,
we don't know that in the original either. But um, I feel like you mentioned the sports connection, which is okay. It works in this reboot, right? But like the original, I like that his tie to his son is his like signature move.
TJ Laser.
TJ Laser. Um, and just like that, the gun spinning, the leg holster thing, like your leg attaches and then you just stick a gun in there. That's
hmm
super cool, man. Like, I think that, you know, what a lot of reboots do, and this one definitely does it, is they try to fill in blanks that were kind of left in the original, but oftentimes that's wholly unnecessary because a cool spinning gun and a son that likes guys that spin guns works just as good as seeing a family, seeing him interact, kind of like having to rebuild some memories of his family, like loosely. Like, yeah, you know, sure, he filled it out some more, but like at the end of the day, I still don't know much more about his wife and kid than in the original.
Yeah, the spinning gun thing's really cool because that's when he's a robot, and at that point you think Alex Murphy's gone, but that's a little bit of his humanity right
Hmm.
there. So that
Yep.
was just a really cool thing, and they don't really have like a move like that in the reboot, where it's like, is he a robot or is he still there? Because he's still doing this thing that he used to do when he was human. He doesn't have a thing
Right.
that
Right.
he does. I don't know. He's kind of weird in the reboot. Let's get to the RoboCop part. We're
Sure. Let's
talking
get.
about Alex Murphy. I think this is where we really want to get to, and I want to start with the design,
Mhm.
just because they do look different. Obviously, RoboCop's. We think of RoboCop as the big, shiny silver thing. You know, that classic
Yeah.
RoboCop look, and they don't really do that in the reboot.
No.
They go black.
I've been through a lot.
Yeah.
Um,
Which is why I wore a black shirt today.
oh yeah, of course, me too. uh, I don't know. What'd you think of that decision to just kind of say,
you know.
no, we're not going to do the silver thing?
You know. It just gives me big like Transformers vibes. Like I like my '80s blocky. You know, Optimus Prime. Like whatever they were doing with this sort of like stripped down metal thing in
hmm
the movie series. I'm like, I guess those are Transformers. And I feel the same way here with RoboCop. Like that is just the suit is the suit, man.
Yeah.
Like you get the little silver chromish thing going on. You get to see sort of like kind of like how the arms move and stuff like that. Like the joints are very like how you put it, they're not all metal, right? So like you kind of get this idea of like I don't even know what you call it, how the hydraulics work, right?
Sure.
This remake just sort of like it's just slick. He's just so metal, and you know some of the revelation about him. I don't need to see like the Darth Vader moment of like I'm lungs and
Yeah, that was such a weird choice.
I'm lungs, spine, and like one hand. Like
One hand.
Holy Christ. Holy Christ, there's nothing left.
save that hand, which is probably like a callback to the movie. Like we can keep his arms, like fucking arms.
That's exactly what it was. Yeah.
Get that shit out of here. I don't know, man. Like it just has such a very specific, iconic look, and they tried to like sleek and modernize it, and it doesn't translate. Like it's not quite RoboCop. Like honestly, some of the metal robots in the movies look more like RoboCop than
Mhm.
RoboCop.
Yeah, by having it like completely black, it's like you can't really tell like the details of the armor because
Right.
it's just like this black thing that he's wearing the whole time, and it's weird because he starts out wearing the silver suit, the iconic silver suit, and you're like, okay, this is RoboCop, and then Michael Keaton's like, oh, let's make it black, and you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
I didn't want you to do that, and then they tease the original suit again at the end of the movie, and it's like, well, that would have been good if you didn't already show it to me in the beginning of the movie when
Right.
I wanted it, and then you changed it, and then you're changing it back. So
Yeah.
that was just a weird decision, I feel, to like throw that in because we weren't even gonna play in that suit. We're gonna stick with this black suit the whole time. So
Yeah, I think when movies try to do things like that, right? Like it's actually better to have the original suit throughout like part of his policing or something like that, and maybe like there's an event that happens where it's like, we need this guy to be more tactical. And like, then you can change it, right? But like to tease it, throw like some little police lights on the shoulder pads, and then just be like, let's make it black. Like it just, you're right. It takes away from that like feel good nostalgia feeling of like, hey, they kind of like made the suit more, modern, but like they kept the sort of integrity of the suit. The black suit, it means nothing to me, right? Like it just, I don't know what this is. This is just like generic kind of robot and not Robocop.
Right.
And there's not enough visors in the world to make a black suit a Robocop suit.
Yeah. But I think the biggest difference, even the suit being different color, isn't that big of a difference. The biggest difference between these two Robocops is you see his face like the whole movie in the reboot.
Yeah.
This seems so real.
I died.
This is incredible. I don't know about that. I trusted you.
Yeah. It's just so much face. Like we mentioned before, sort of like Alex Murphy and like how quickly he becomes RoboCop in the original film. There's mystery as to who that is, right? Mm-hmm. Like the original film squarely does not reveal to like the people in that universe who RoboCop is. Like his partner has to see, like we mentioned, the gun movement before he's like, oh, that might be. And mm-hmm. She still doesn't know that might be Murphy. In this one, they're like, we found cop Alex Murphy, who like isn't really like a hero cop, isn't really a bad cop. He's just kind of like an average cop. Like they tease that one guy who's like kind of like super like masculine guy. It's like, yeah, let's make it that guy. But he's too psychologically unhinged. I don't know how you can be more psychologically unhinged than what happened. So like, I guess it's good they found a more willing host here, but like, yeah, you just see this guy's face all the time. That's not why I'm not watching RoboCop to see this guy's face. You're not Alex Murphy anymore. You're RoboCop.
It's so weird. It's like if you're making a Batman movie and then you change his mask to show Bruce Wayne's face the whole time. That's kind of what I'm thinking. It's like, what are we doing? It only comes on apparently when he's being threatened. So it's only during the action scenes. So that way it could be like a CGI, I guess. You don't actually have to have the actor.
Like you just mentioned CGI there. The amount of practical effects that come into play in this original film, and what you were saying before about Paul Verhoeven, and even before that when you were talking about our Total Recall episode, we actually get two people returning here. You've got the director, Paul Verhoeven, and you've got Rob Vidden, who did a lot of the practical effects. And I think that, we'll talk about this a lot more, but like the way that Vidden's able to do a lot of these practical effects, the reveal of the face is like a major kind of like landmark moment in the movie. And I think what you're getting at is that like, we're kind of missing that, right? Like if characters didn't know it was Murphy, then it would help when like he sees his family, when he sees his partner, like maybe that face reveal would have some impact. But the movie, the reboot's kind of working around this plot of, we've got this government bill that's out there that says we can't use robots on American soil. So they got to know who the robot is. So it's Alex Murphy. And it's like more about Alex Murphy being a human than it is about him being a Robocop. And it's like, why would you do that? It's the Robocop. Like, that's why we're here, man. It's a weird choice, to your point.
Yeah. But you brought up the reveal. The reveal's done amazing in the original film. It's that face reveal, because you don't see his face after Alex Murphy's killed. And you don't even see Robocop right away. They do this great thing where it's like from his point of view, where he's getting assembled, and you just see all these, I don't know, scientists, I guess, kind of building him. And it's like so interesting to see it from Robocop's point of view. And you're just like dying like to see him. I remember when I was a kid seeing that scene. It's like, where's Robocop? I want to see Robocop. When are we actually going to see Robocop? And then they really drag it out and then keep building this mystery. Like, okay, there's his arm. I want to see the rest of him. Show more of him. So they give you little bits here and there. And then they finally like unveil him when he gets to the police station. And then they do the same thing with his actual face. They don't show you his face at all. They do tease a little bit, like when he's fighting Ed 209, that his visor breaks and you see, oh, he's got an eye. I remember seeing that when I was a kid going, oh, he still has human eyes? He's not like completely like a robot? Like, that just completely captured my imagination. I just love the little like breadcrumbs there. Like, okay, we're gonna show you this, this, and this, and then ultimately to that face reveal. And going into the effects, like the practical effects, amazing. It's
Yeah.
like how his head looks like half a machine and half human. It's like I was looking for like the seams and I didn't see
I
anything.
still don't know how it works.
Yeah.
You know,
It was a beautiful makeup job
Yeah.
he did. Incredible, and I got to give him credit again. Rob Bitton,
yeah. Well,
amazing job. It still holds up today. It looks flawless. It looks like a guy who's a robot.
it totally does.
It's really good to see you again, Murphy.
There's maybe kind of on that scene, like you can kind of say, okay, that looks like it might be makeup. But like, funny enough, like there was a big. I was reading some trivia on this. That was a big point of contention between Paul Verhoeven and Rob Bitton. He was like, I think Rob wanted the reveal to be in a darker setting, less lighting. And Paul's like, no. Let's do it my way. And they got in a huge fight. And then after he saw it in theaters, he was like, dude, you were right. Let's make Total Recall.
Yeah,
That's
those
so
two butted
cool.
heads a lot. Paul Verhoeven did not like the original design for RoboCop, and he just kept shitting on stuff Rob Bitton did. Rob Bitton, by the way, alumnus of the show, not only did he do Total Recall, but he did The Thing, the remake of The Thing. He did the practical effects for that. So, he's pretty good at his job, I guess, is what we're saying. And for Paul Verhoeven, his first American movie, to just be shitting on this guy, he's got some balls.
Yeah.
But going back to the look of Murphy, it's just he looks so much more like a guy who's a robot now, a cyborg, right? As opposed to the reboot where his face is like kind of covered, and they do the thing, where they unveil like you're just lungs, a head, and a hand. But like when he's in the RoboCop costume, it looks like he could just be like doing cosplay or something because there's nothing about him to make him look like a robot. He's just completely covered head to toe, nothing robotic really.
I know I'm dreaming because I can feel all of this.
Alex.
And a lot of the filming, you're not, like you mentioned, there's so much emphasis on his face. Like you're not doing a lot of like wide shots of this RoboCop outside of action. So it's like, what's he look like? They paid good money for that RoboCop suit in the original. I guess speculation is between that was either $500,000 to $1 million suit. So they were like, we need to get our money's worth. And like you mentioned, it captured imagination. I love the scene when they're putting the LED on him and they screw it in and like it gets closer and it gets closer. I'm like, that's what the hell I want to see. That's one way to make us as an audience like trying to figure out how does this robot man, how does it work? In the reboot, they told us how it works. They tell us way too much about how it works. Like, seeing the lungs and stuff, like, yeah, that's an interesting reveal, but it's not nearly as impactful as the partner seeing Murphy's face again. It's like, you're not going to like what you see. In a way, it's because he's not necessarily going to like what he sees when he takes off his visor. It's just better.
I just want to talk about the hand a little bit. It is weird, a weird decision to just keep the hand. I thought they did that for Mrs. Murphy, maybe.
Okay, there you go.
That's just my adult humor coming in, or maybe childish humor, if you want to say that.
Yeah, I mean, what was this RoboCop movie rated R?
No, that's a big difference too.
Okay,
the original rated R, obviously, and the remake or the reboot PG-13. But the director was pushing for an R. It was the studio that held him back.
Yeah. The studio's trying to maximize profit, and I think that something like you said with like the hand, like I love that joke, but like I don't see that in this movie, right? Like this movie doesn't push things in a way that original film does. Like our RoboCop is very interesting in his approach to law enforcement because it's mostly shooting guys, which I'm cool with because like the movie does it so violently and with so many cool practical effects. Like that's the job, right? I don't know if this is necessarily the time. We can talk about action maybe a little bit later, but like tonally, like I said, I love your joke there about the hand, but like I just don't see that in that film. So like it didn't cross my mind, but as you're saying, it's like that's pretty fun.
Yeah, okay. So that's pretty much the differences with the design. But he does kind of have different arcs
Yes.
in the movie. So I think we should just go into that a little bit. So I'll just start with the original, just because it's a lot cleaner. We got Alex Murphy, like you said, kind of a blank slate. We do know he has a kid. That's it. And then as he's dead, then we kind of learn that he has a family and all this stuff. But pretty much when Alex Murphy dies, Alex Murphy really dies. Like, he doesn't continue his life as Alex Murphy when he's Robocop. He is Robocop. He is this robotic speaking. He doesn't talk like Alex Murphy talked, He talks like a robot. He acts like a robot. He doesn't know about his past life. So humanity completely gone. And then, slowly he's starting to not really remember, because he says he can't remember. He doesn't remember anything, but he's like getting glimpses of like this Alex Murphy, and he feels things about certain things. So it's like this story about this guy who becomes a machine, who slowly gets his humanity back, I think, is a pretty easy way of explaining his arc. Not the same arc in the reboot. So we got a guy, we know he has got a family. When he pretty much dies, I guess, when he comes back, he's pretty much Alex Murphy right away.
Right.
The doctor specifically says they kept his emotions and his intellect and his memories pretty much intact. So he's not a blank slate. He's Alex Murphy as this robot. He's sort of learning to accept this life as a robot. And then as soon as he does that, they take away his humanity.
Right.
And then it somehow comes back.
Are you saying it's a soul?
So it's not the human, not human, get it back. It's human, still human, even though I'm a robot. But now they're taking it away, and I'm still getting it back. So that's just a small difference there.
Yeah.
Actually, no, fuck that. That's a huge difference there.
It's a huge difference.
Because he shouldn't be Alex Murphy when he's had the Robocop surgery, I guess we'll call it. He should just be a robot.
It would have made more sense, because the problem with that is that we're going through the trial and error of this science, kind of real time in the movie, and I don't care, right? I don't care in this idea, because again, who is it for, right? Oh, the human reacts slightly slower than a robot. That's actually still a plus.
Yeah.
That's the whole point, was that the robot does not consider humanity. So it's okay if a cybernetic, oh God, all right, here we go. All right, rant time. The problem is that the U.S. government is not letting you use robots on U.S. soil because they don't care about little kids and stuff like that, right? Your solution is, I need to make a basically half human, half robot thing, a cyborg, like you mentioned before. You then create this secondary problem for yourself that no one's asking you about, by the way. Maybe the investors, oh, he moves seconds slower than a robot, but you already have the entire United States being policed by human beings. So it's not like anyone saying, oh my God, we don't have robots that are stopping violence from happening in our streets, because you already have humans, and most of them are dirty cops. So why is it a problem in a non-military setting that he moves slightly slower than a robot? Because you don't have robots in the United States in the first place doing the crime. Humans are doing the crime. So he moves faster than a human. Problem solved. You did it. Hooray. The United States government. They're creating problems for themselves. And again, I don't care. I don't care that it takes him 5 more seconds to shoot a bad guy than this robot that's never going to get to be the robot in the country in the first place. Why do I give a shit? So, the movie just went ultra corporation, and I need to care about, things that don't. I know they don't matter, because I'm watching the movie. I know they don't matter. So that's all that I wanted to say there. And I think it's such a bad choice, because now we know we don't really ultimately care about the robots, because they don't come back into play except when he fights him. And now I have to go through the stupid journey of, we got to bring his dopamine levels down, play back his death on loop. We got to tweak this. He's still a little too human. No, he's a little too robot. What do we do? And then at the end of the day, none of their technology matters because apparently there's some indomitable human spirit that ultimately you're going to be able to bypass robot stuff because you are a man. No, it doesn't work. Sorry about that rant, but like it just bothers me so much.
Yeah, so sometimes less is more.
Yes. Spin the gun. Woo! Wow. Love it.
I think we should maybe pivot because you did bring up the corporations. So I think we should go into the corporations here who made our Robocops. In the original, we got OCP, Omnicorp. Sorry, not Omnicorp. Fucking reboot. OCP, Omni Consumer Products. And then in the reboot, it's Omnicorp. And the motivations of these companies are very different. You already said that Omnicorp in the reboot, they have these robots pretty much in every country around the world is what it sounds like.
Yeah.
Pretty much oppressing people, like pretty obviously and blatantly oppressing people and shooting, innocent civilians. And then their goal, though, because they need to go domestic, because the one market they don't have is the U.S. market, and it would increase their profits by $600 billion. It's money that they're losing every fucking day. It's okay, sure. As opposed to OCP, who wants to kind of they want this new Delta City, right? Old Detroit, it's all beat up, it's like crime ridden and everything. So they want to clean up the streets. That way, they can do this new Delta City.
Yep. And they get the added bonus of basically doing what Omnicorp's doing in the reboot. Because they're like, once we prove that it works in Delta City, we could sell this as a military tech.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Clean, simple, keeps it domestic. We don't start overseas and then try to work our way back into the United States. Sorry,
it does feel like they're going backwards in the reboot because like they start globally and then they focus locally. It's like usually you have to stop the threat locally, that way it doesn't expand globally, but Omnicorp's already global, so it's like a small domestic victory is what we're going for, but even though the rest of the world's fucked.
And it's a strange scenario, right? They're like posits the United States, and I mean maybe it's a commentary on the US. It posits the United States that is okay with oppression and war crimes abroad all day, like doesn't matter, citizens don't care, but don't bring that shit over here. It's like, really? Like, I feel like there would be some public backlash to these robots beyond just like they can't operate here. So again, to your point, they're just going in such a weird direction, right? Like, it does feel like the movie's going in reverse. The end game already happened in this reboot. Like you mentioned, like the domestic win is not. I know it's not as big as a foreign win. It's not.
Yeah, Omnicorp's already won. It's what are we exactly stopping? Just so the robots aren't here, but they're already taken over the rest of the world pretty much. So they still win at the end of the movie technically because they're still around the globe. It's not like Robocop is able to stop Omnicorp indefinitely. Like now they can't do the robots around the world. That doesn't happen because we're not focusing on that because we're focusing just on this local stuff here, which I don't know. It does feel so weird.
I feel like they didn't quite think that through, right? They're like, you've created a world where they have such a foothold globally. With like the military, they're like, at a certain point, is the U.S. really in charge of its own military, or is it Omnicorp? Because it seems like Omnicorp can pretty much do whatever the hell they want. Even in a U.S. city, I mean, we're seeing it right here. They're trying to win this like marketing PR war, but I don't know. Like, if you really wanted to maximize profit, I guess you just enslave all of humanity. You Skynet it at that point. But whatever. What I think really makes these corporations work isn't their crazy plans; it's the people that run them.
That's right. So let's get into some of these players at these companies. And OCP, we got Ronnie Cox as Dick Jones.
I had to kill Bob Morton because he made a mistake. Now it's time to erase that mistake.
Alumnus from our Total Recall episode. We got Miguel Ferrer as Bob Morton. He's the one that creates our Robocop.
God, you girls are so great. I mean, I love to be with intelligent women.
And then Dan O'Leary is as the old man. That's how he's credited as. He doesn't have a name. He's just the old man.
How can we help you, officer?
mattered to the old man. So he's the big guy at the top, but he's not the one calling the shots necessarily. But he's the one who pretty much gives everything the okay. And then at Omnicorp, we got Michael Keaton as Raymond Sellers.
You can't. You're not programmed that way. If you go against the program, the entire system shuts down.
He's the one at the top of Omnicorp, and he's the one that also makes Robocop. And then who works for him is Gary Oldman as Denton Norton, Dr. Denton.
Your system draws connections automatically. It will link perpetrators to their crimes and give you their exact locations whenever available.
And Jack Earl Haley is Rick Maddox. He doesn't really work for Omnicorp, but he kind of works for Michael Keaton's guy eventually. He's military, but he hired privately, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
All right. I say we go in 3. 3.
So those are the major players. So we do got some significant differences here because Michael Keaton kind of is like Bob Morton and Dick Jones combined because he's the creator, but he's also the evil guy in charge.
Let's just kind of look at it from a corporate standpoint, right? Like, I think in the original film, we do get that classic 1980s corpo bad guy thing going on here. Like, you got Ronnie Cox as Dick Jones, who's a phenomenal character, by the way. Just like your classic everyday ultra rich prick, who's super ambitious, basically, like you mentioned, kind of runs the country. Like, the old man is technically still in charge, but like Dick Jones is pulling all the strings behind the scenes, and like that's a really cool touch. What's hilarious is that he immediately screws up in the movie, which opens up the door for Miguel Ferrer's Bob Morton, and I like that idea of like this, and again, another ambitious guy, basically like the Dick Jones of the future, who's trying to like leapfrog and pull that mantle a little too early in the film, because he's in Dick Jones' crosshairs, and he doesn't recognize how far Dick Jones is willing to go or what he's capable of until it's a little too late for him. I don't know. They're just such big, fun personalities. It works really well. And to your point, when you get Michael Keaton, you kind of just roll all that up into a more modern corporate overlord type character, a guy who like is worried about the investors, is worried about the PR and stuff like that. He's still evil, and it goes like far up the chain. But I love the idea of these two competing parties. I don't know if it's supposed to read as humorous, but it's kind of funny to me. They're back and forth with each other, and I feel like that's kind of missing in this movie.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I do like their back and forth. That's that one scene in the bathroom where Bob Morton's making fun of him, and then like he's there, and then the guy pisses himself because he's like, "Oh shit, Dick Jones is here." So then it's like, I used to make fun of the old man back in the day too. We even called him asshole. I don't know. I just always thought that was funny. But that back and forth, yeah, that's just enjoyable. And then you're not really sure at that point, like, who's the good guy there? You're like, I'm guessing it's Morton because he made Robocop, so this Dick Jones is probably the bad guy. And then, with Bob's murder, it's definitely Dick Jones. And that's one thing the original really does well, is it does a really good job of establishing who the villain is. Like, pretty early on, like, okay, it's this Dick Jones guy, especially once Bob is murdered, because the guy who murders Bob is also the guy who murders Alex Murphy, and the guy he works for is Dick Jones. So we know Dick Jones, that's the number one guy. Plain and simple. Okay, that's who we're going for. It's not so obvious with Raymond Sellers. I didn't know for a lot of the movie if he was the bad guy because he made Robocop, and he didn't really seem terrible. It wasn't really until the end of the movie when he's like, well, if he gets out and starts talking, that could really damage his corporation and we could lose everything. So we got to kind of just unplug him pretty much. And then that was the only real evil thing I think he did, other than just being a rich corporation. But he didn't really seem like the bad guy to me. Like, I wasn't sure if it was Sam Jackson. I wasn't sure if it was the guy who actually kills Alex Murphy. I wasn't sure if it was maybe the doctor, because the doctor had like all this high moral stuff, and he was kind of, deprogramming or taking away the humanity from Alex Murphy. So I was like, maybe it's the doctor. So not such, I like when movies don't make, the obvious mustache twirling villain, but I also need something, show me some evil that this guy has done, and then I'll know that he's definitely the villain. Like, he could be likable, he could be charming, but do something bad, so I know that at the end of the day I shouldn't be rooting for him. And they do that pretty well with Dick Jones. They don't really do that with Sellers. Can you name like any of the things that he did to really label himself as a villain?
No, and the problem is, to your point, like, because they try to give Gary Oldman this sort of like hero turn towards the end, right? That they're all fallible, they're all responsible, they're accomplices. Every single person, whether it's what's his name, I forget how to say his name, Jay Bershaw or whatever, little Canadian guy from the Stoner movies. He's in the marketing, so like the marketing guy knows what's going on. You have kind of like the girl boss, like woman that's partially like she's responsible. Gary Oldman's responsible. And there were like moments where like it's not blatantly evil, right? Like they're kind of like, hey man, look, dude, we already introduced this guy. We got to figure this out. Like, we're kind of ahead of our skis. It is ambiguous, and even like you mentioned, the Maddox character, for example, like, is he the bad guy? Because he's pretty evil, It's almost a little too corporate, which is like, we know there's evil happening, and we're all kind of responsible for it. But like, none of us are so responsible that you can be like, that guy needs to go to jail. Like, I guess in a way that's kind of accurate, right?
Yeah.
But what I love about the original, though, is that it's that beautiful kind of leapfrog. Like, ultimately, Dick Jones is the bad guy. But you start, Dick Jones like, here's the Ed 9000 or whatever, and he's like, hey, Kenny, just point this gun at him. Go ahead. And he's like, put the gun down. He's like, all right, you have 12 seconds. No. And then that guy gets destroyed. And I love how Morton just like, Miguel Ferris Morton just like, yeah, that was terrible, but I have another idea. And he just snakes Dick Jones. So like, Dick Jones gets mad. Now this guy is kind of like our lead sort of, I'm now VP. But you have this great scene when they kill Alex Murphy. The bad guy that kills Alex Murphy is clearly a bad guy because, like you mentioned, he kills Morton. And then we made that guy such a badass that the fact that he listens to Dick Jones means Dick Jones must be the most badass guy on the planet. It's like a wrestling bump. It's like we put over the ultimate bad guy, but like letting him, slam Andre the Giant, right? It's perfect. It's a perfect way to just establish these hierarchies of evil and power. And like you mentioned, in a reboot, we don't have that because it's so ambiguous and like weirdly too accurate.
Yeah. There's not a connection between the major corporation and the murder of Alex Murphy in the reboot. But maybe we'll get into that. Should we get to the head henchman right now? Because you just brought him up, and I'm kind of dying to talk about Kurtwood Smith's performance as Clarence.
Yeah, let's do it, man.
Let's get into these. So we have Kurtwood Smith as Clarence Boddicker.
You a good cop? Hot shot? Sure you are. Why, you gotta be some kind of great cop.
And then we have Patrick Garrow as Antoine Vallon.
How do we stop him?
50 caliber and above. Aim for the head.
I think we're going to start with Kurtwood Smith. I'm just going to say it, man. Fucking one of my favorite movie villains of all time. And I'm saying that and laughing because he's not just evil. He's fucking funny. He's charming. He's all over the spectrum with his performance. It is fantastic what he does with his character.
Yeah, I just love that, like, out of everyone in the gang, he kind of is like the most unassuming. Like, right. He's sitting there, he's got his glasses on, he's bald.
Male pattern baldness,
Yeah, and it's like, all right, like, I guess this guy's a bad guy, but it's the moments when he is the bad guy is what takes over the top. Like, watching the Boddicker gang kind of operate and how wild they are, but then for him, like we mentioned when Alex Murphy dies, he's like, he takes his little shotgun, I'm going to shoot your hand off. It's like, holy shit! Wait a minute.
And the way he does it too, like laughing as he does it, you know, doing the Caddyshack, no, 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 you know, it's insane.
Yeah, it's so good.
It is
So good.
insane. He's having so much fun through this guy's misery.
Yeah.
What a great villain. And even before that, when they're still getting chased by the police, one of the guys gets shot. One of his guys gets shot. And it's like, well, what are we going to do? And one of my favorite lines, can you fly, Bobby? He just throws him out. And so you're like, okay, so this guy might be the leader. And then when you see what he does to Alex Murphy, okay, this guy's definitely the fucking leader. And he's one of our main baddies.
Yeah, I just loved it. Like you said, like we mentioned, Murphy, it's basically, at least the way it's filmed, it looks like it's just his first day on the job. He's immediately in the middle of this like robbery. And you're right, it's funny before it even gets violent, because like, he's like, you burned the money. I was like, well, I had to set the charge. He's like, this is worthless. You know? So he's got that humor. The lines, can you fly, Bobby? No. All that stuff is just like, it's dark, it's funny. It's like, it just toes that line so well. And it makes him such a chaotic character. You don't know what he's capable of. And, you know, I just love that turn. The murder of Murphy is so violent that you know you have to respect this guy's evil, as it were. And again, like I mentioned before, because we made him so evil, when he has to listen to somebody, whoa, that guy must be, you know, even nuttier. Like, I just love that. And I also love how self-interested he ultimately is, because like when Robocop's like kind of kicking his ass, it's like, okay, here's what I know.
He sings like a canary. He's like, here's Dick Jones, not me.
It's like when Dick Jones tries to call him out for that, he's like, you see my face. Yeah, he just gets tossed to like 3 window panes. Even after that moment, just like his commitment to just going right back to working the game. Just like, I don't know, it's such a fun character.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so many good moments. And even when like Alex Murphy brings him in the first time, he's at the police station, he just spits up blood right in front of the cop. He's like, well, my fucking phone call. I mean, just like, if he wasn't such an asshole, you know, you might be rooting for this guy. But, you know, he's obviously the villain and he kills people, so we can't be rooting for him. But he's so fun to watch, for sure. A lot more fun than I guess you could call his equivalent, which we said, this Valen character who kills Murphy because Murphy's after this Valen character and struggling here because we don't really know shit about this Valen character.
So, you were describing him, I was like, Valen. I was like, oh, is that the military guy? I was like, no, it's that other guy. It's the guy who just kind of sits at, you know, like a desk with coke on in the dark. He's just very, very generic. We don't get a lot of lines from him.
Mm-hmm. Got no personality at all. You know he's a wanted man because Alex Murphy's after him, and you know he's corrupting the cops because he's getting all this intel from them, and he's got a lot of money, he's got a lot of guns, but, you know, like you said, generic, very by the books. He doesn't bring anything like Clarence did. Like, Clarence has so much stuff that you could just quote and just have fun with. This guy, I don't know. He's just there, and then he's not.
Yeah, he's Miami Vice style, like, villain, you know, just like he's got his hair kind of slicked back and just, I don't know, like he just kind of, like I said, he sits at like tables or desks, and then, you know, he tells people kind of the general evil that they need to do, but like he doesn't really have such a connection with these other characters. Like, yeah, like when Clarence gets, you know, kind of when he dimes out the bad guy, they have an interaction, and we can kind of like quote it and laugh about it. Valen, you know, when he gets caught, like I've been caught. You know, it's like it doesn't. I don't know. He's just not in the movie enough. And I think that the scope, again, is probably the problem, right? Like when we talk domestically, right? This Valen guy, yeah, it was important when he blew up Murphy at the beginning of the movie. It became a lot less important when there was this whole global U.S. Senate connection. It's like I don't really care what happens with Valen because he's like small peanuts compared to the corporation and what they're up to. So he just becomes background noise at a certain point.
Yeah, there was really a mistake to not connect the murder of Alex Murphy to the big baddie in the movie, because
Right.
he is just like a side quest, pretty much. It's not that important. He corrupts the cops, sure, but he's not connected to Omnicorp in any way. So getting him doesn't help us get the big baddie like it does in the original, because getting to Clarence gets us, it just gets us connected to Dick Jones. Oh, okay, so now we know where to go from here, because he works for the main baddie. Fallon doesn't work for anybody, and he's not connected to Omnicorp in any way at all.
No.
And like I said, I was having trouble, like, who is the bad guy here? Who is going to be the one I go for? Robocop's going to go for at the end of the movie. And I don't know. It's just, they should have had a connection somehow. And by not doing that, it really just muddied that.
It's the order of events in the film, right? Like, I get that he has to kind of avenge his own murder, but like the way he does it, like you mentioned, isn't connected to the big baddie. Like, by taking his sort of humanity in the beginning of the film, having this like directive that he doesn't know about, in the film, it ties RoboCop back into this corporation, which, like you mentioned, is connected to Clarence's gang and stuff like that. So, all right, we got somewhere to go. This Valen guy, it's like when they revealed that Valen was like the bad guy, when they revealed even the sergeant in the precinct was dirty, it was like, moving on. Like, it was not important that there were dirty cops at the highest level, because that wasn't the point of the movie. So like, that was really strange.
Yeah, it totally led us down this rabbit hole. Okay, so Valen, we figured out the fingerprints from the guns lead us to these corrupt cops. The corrupt cops say it was the police chief, and then I'm about to arrest the police chief, but then you get shut down, and then that just kind of goes away, because that's not the problem. Like, it's Omnicorp. So we were just going on this side quest and ultimately not even completing it because we got to go after Omnicorp now. And this movie is 2 hours. It is longer than the original RoboCop. So that's a journey we had to take, and that led to nowhere. Just throwing that out there.
And it's funny because, like, it's almost like, like you mentioned earlier, that you're seeing things from like RoboCop's perspective, with the suit and everything like that. We're kind of seeing everything from like the corporate boardroom's perspective.
Yeah.
So like, when you find out that the police chief's dirty, there's like speculation that maybe they'll like say that, hey, RoboCop cleaned up a corrupt department. They're like, yeah, that could be our angle. That could be our angle. And then it's not your angle. It's not your angle. So like, what was that, right? Like, they just zoom right past that moment into the next phase of whatever the movie wants to be. And like, I think there's a way to do it where RoboCop, takes down Sellers and then finds out he was, the cops set him up. Like, if you were trying to, let's say you were trying to set this up for like a sequel, if you switch that order of events, that's actually way more impactful than I found out about the dirty cops. I didn't really do anything about it. And then I tried to take down the corporation, right? If you took down the corporation and found out dirty cops were working with the corporation, like, cool, all right, maybe we're trying to avenge our murder here. He doesn't really, like, the one thing that he should be concerned of the most, which is kind of like avenging his murder, is, to your point, a side quest and a side plot that we don't even finish. It's crazy. I don't know. Just, I mean, I don't, like you mentioned, I have almost nothing to say about Valen because he's not in the movie, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, we don't really see Valen interact with Murphy at all until Valen gets killed, because Murphy was killed by a car bomb. So, like, Valen wasn't face to face like Clarence was with Murphy, because he's the one that actually pulled the trigger and shot him through the head. He blew his hand off and shot him through the head. And then, they don't interact at all. I mean, you see Valen just going, man, I don't want this guy after me, man. What are you doing? I'm paying you. And that, in his stupid way. And then they only interact when he shoots him at the end. But then in the original, when Murphy starts to remember who he was and, I was murdered. So then he interacts with Clarence again, but this time as RoboCop, and the tables have completely turned. where you think he is going to kill him, but then he just gets the information about Dick Jones and ultimately arrests him. And then they have a third confrontation at the end, which is where finally Alex gets his, his vengeance and is able to, get justice. So, the two of them have a lot of back and forth. Valen and Murphy, not till the very end. So it's, even when he's able to kill him and kind of get his, vengeance, it doesn't have the impact it does. It definitely doesn't have the impact it does that the original film did.
Yeah, and I think this is where the problem of like the PG-13 rating comes in, because like the car bomb is such a cop out, right? Like it's not even remotely the same. He doesn't know who did it, right? Like I think let's just break it down to the most simple. He doesn't know who blew him up. And he has to find that out. And to your point about being a quest, when he finds it out, it's inconsequential to him, which is weird, right? In the original film, what makes this arc work, when you see your killer face to face and he tortures you like that, it really makes you, feel it. And the guy's willing to torture you again later in the movie, right? Like, it's personal. When a guy car bombs you, you have to kind of figure out who it was. And ultimately, like, you could probably have more of a beef with your actual coworkers than the guy that killed you. I mean, it just kind of weakens you.
Yeah. It was a big just mistake what they did. I don't agree with it at all. I don't like this Valen character. He's completely forgettable, and the fact that he's not connected to ultimately the big baddie of the film is another misstep. And I just didn't really care that he was going after Valen, because I knew he wasn't important to the plot, really. So
I honestly forgot that was part of the movie. Like, when you said Valen, I was like, what is he talking about? Like, I literally forgot that was part of the movie.
Clarence, it's not just Clarence too. He's got Emil. He's got everybody. He's got who's that? He's got Leon Nash, Ray Wise. We got a lot of people here from Twin Peaks. So yeah. It's a really fun cast. Like, these guys, these animals, and the way they interact, and they're just such interesting characters, even though they're like terrible people, but they're memorable as hell. And you do not get anything even close to that in the remake with these bad guys who killed Alex Murphy.
And again, kind of like using that pro wrestler theory again, right? Like, Clarence is able to control this just like fanatical, like, I don't know, just like you mentioned, these bad guys. Like, this is clearly a gang of bad people. And the fact that any of them listen to him shows that, like, wow, if he's able to keep these people under control, people are willing to fire basically like missiles in the middle of the street with like no concern about getting caught or anything like that. Like, if he can make those guys fall in line, even when he's blowing up their 6,000 SUX,
SUX,
it's just like, all right, like, yeah, I gotta respect this guy's villainry. I don't have to respect Valen's villainry because I don't know what it entails. Really, I think like there's just so many different factors of why the Clarence, gang is more memorable, why they're more villainous and stuff like that. And I think it's just seeing the interaction of these guys kind of trying to one up each other. The fact that while they're doing crazy stuff, they're getting chased by the cops and they're cracking jokes. When they do, like, what was it, Leon, his character, when he's like taking the leap and Lewis sneaks up on him and he's like, can I zip this? and then next thing you know, he's punching the lady off of a walkway. Like, it's, yeah, man. Like, these are competent and confident villains.
He got her. He sucker punched her because she had to look. She could not look at the dick.
That was such a weird scene. Like, oh,
no. You're under arrest, but let me see. Should we get into the Lewis character? Because that's a pretty big difference, I guess, in both of these films. All right, we have Nancy Allen as Ann Lewis.
Your gun? You asked for this?
And Michael K. Williams is Jack Lewis.
What's going on? What the hell are you doing here?
Not gonna play good cop, bad cop?
Nah, Daniels. Bad cop, Robocop.
Usually when the gender swap happens in a reboot or remake, it's usually a female taking a role that used to be a male, but now it's reversed.
Yeah.
I think this is the first that we've seen in this whole series we do here. Michael K. Williams, good old Omar. Anytime we could bring up The Wire, I think we do, and I'm going to bring it up again.
Absolutely.
Omar from The Wire. There we go.
Yeah, or Chalky White from Boardwalk Empire. Yeah, I mean, you know, Michael K. Williams, he's always a competent actor. Like, you're never going to see him in a role and just be like, I wish I was somebody else, right? But this is about as close as it gets, right? Because, like, he's used well enough in the film, but it does feel really strange. Maybe it's because they make his wife more of a character in this, and they're trying to keep sort of like the sort of like girl power energy on her. But like, why would you do this? Like, Lewis is a woman, and you know, again, reading up on the trivia, like they have her cut her hair so much to basically try to make her look asexual, which is like, that's a weird choice, guys, but okay. But like, I don't know, like I like that he had a female partner. I like that she kind of had her own agency in the sense, like it started really early in the movie when Anna's character is like, oh, I want to drive the car. And he's like, I like to drive when I'm breaking into a new town. It's like, all right, whatever, dude. I don't know, like it just seems so weird to take that energy away from this movie. Like, I don't know why they would make that choice.
I don't know the exact reason to change it to a man. It didn't bother me so much. I just didn't really like the character that much, I guess, in the reboot. Like, I had real trust issues with Lewis for some reason. Like, I didn't trust him. Like, I thought he was like working also for Valen. I thought he might be a corrupt cop. And then, like, when I was kind of sure he wasn't, then I was like, maybe he's banging the wife or something. Like, something about him. I wasn't sure. I was like, you're going to make him do something because he was so fucking boring. So I was like, there's got to be something going on because this guy isn't doing anything, really. But then you just find out, oh, he is actually a good cop. And he does help Murphy at the end. You know, he does kind of save his life a couple of times at the end. So he's good there. But other than that, he's just kind of in the background for most of it.
Again, you know what the problem is? It's the choice of the intro, right? Like, kind of talking about how Alex Murphy's going from human to robot to human, right? Like, you've got this cop that works with him who he's injured, right? So you start the movie with him basically like incapacitated because of what Valen did, right? So I guess Valen did that. Giving him some credit again. But Lewis isn't really doing anything at the beginning of the movie because he's in the hospital. And like, you could speculate, is he going to be the Robocop? Because like, he looks like a viable candidate right now. So like, by the time we get him back, he's not Alex Murphy anymore. He's Robocop, and he's struggling with like whether I'm going to be a human or not. So like, we don't get anything from Lewis other than like concerned looks for an old partner. At least in the original film, that partnership is a component of the mystery. Mm-hmm. If she's able to find out that he is Robocop, there's implications as to what's going on here. That just they're completely absent from this remake film because they already know each other. Hey, it's you. Hey, it's you. All right.
Right. Yeah, he's his friend. He does save his life a couple times, like I mentioned, but he's not terribly important, I would say, in the reboot. Like, Lewis is very important to Murphy because pretty much when he's at his lowest, she's the only one that's really there for him. And she's also his main connection to his humanity. She's like trying to, help him be Murphy again, She's the one around when he takes his mask off for the first time. She's so important, and yeah, she also saves his life too at the end. So you have this Lewis character, you got all this, the blueprint's all there, and then you just do nothing pretty much in the reboot. Like, so underserved in the reboot.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
Yeah, and I think again, I think it's the choice to put such an emphasis on his family that you're taking away the importance of Lewis. His wife kind of occupies the role of what Lewis was in the original movie. And again, that's another, just going back to the choices, that storytelling is even happening because he's no longer Alex Murphy. He's RoboCop. So he has no more connection to his wife and kids. They're not part of his life anymore. And now we have a character who is that thread connecting him back to his old life. So we're able to add some scenes and do some interesting things with him. Again, Lewis coming back, like he was hurt, and now when they're reintroducing themselves to each other, he's just getting back into the swing of things himself. So like, I don't know, like he doesn't have much to do there on that part. You're right. It seems like could he be part of this like dirty cop thing? He's not. So nothing to see here. And instead of dealing with Lewis, what's more important is his connection to his family and his wife and kid. So wife and kid is replacing Lewis's importance in the reboot, which is why, you're like, what do I do with this character in my head? Is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy? Because there's nothing for him to do.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. But even with the wife and kid kind of replacing Lewis's role, they still don't. I mean, they're part of his life before he became a RoboCop, but he's not like the RoboCop in the original. Like he's not completely machine. Like he still has his humanity after the surgery, right? He still thinks and acts the way that Alex Murphy did before. So he doesn't need them to become human because he still kind of acts like a human. And even when the dopamine levels go down, I guess, and then for some reason he becomes a robot, more robotic, he doesn't even use his family to kind of snap out of it necessarily. He just kind of does.
Yeah.
And it's not by anything that his wife actively did. Like mostly she's just there complaining to Omnicorp, like, let me see my husband. She doesn't really have much to do.
I want to talk to your manager.
Pretty much. And then she's like a hostage at the end. So it's like, well, now you're fucking up shit. Come on.
There's a scene when the wife was like, oh, your son's kind of more withdrawn. He's not talking. He's avoiding things. He's scared. And he goes to this whole like sequence where he's looking at the levels of anxiety and, stress on his wife and then on his kid. And you're like, okay, the level of stress on his kid. And then the kid saw him get car bombed. So it was like, okay, that's when he was stressed too. So I'm like, oh, this guy's going to go talk to his kid, and that's going to like bring us all together. And he's like, my kid, my wife, my kid, my murder. Who did this? And then he's looking at the stress levels on himself. And I'm like, wait a minute, dude. What? You just left your wife at this police station, didn't say anything to her. Notice that your kid is going through a hard time, and your reaction is, I got to go solve my murder. What a fumble, dude.
I was totally thinking he was going to go to see his family and kind of recapture that humanity that he had when he was initially RoboCop. But no, he does just, I'm going to be a detective now and try to solve my murder. Wow. What a pivot from what I thought we were going to do. It would have been much better if he went back home and tried to reconnect with his family.
Yeah. I feel like we're kind of doing what they did in the reboot. So we've introduced the scenario. Maybe we should introduce the characters.
Abby Cornish as Clara Murphy.
Get out of the way!
Alex, put down the gun.
Clara!
And Jean-Paul Rutten as David Murphy.
John-Paul
the wife
Rutten,
and
not
kid.
Much to say.
Yeah, he's there. He watches baseball with his dad in the beginning. He says he taped a baseball game later, and he's a hostage at the end. That's his character arc.
Yeah. Abby Cornish definitely gets more to do, but not much more, right?
Like I said, just complaining. She's just complaining.
Yeah.
Where's my husband? I want my husband. You're my husband.
This isn't how my husband normally acts. I don't know what you did to my husband, but I want to figure that out.
I want to touch that hand.
That hand.
Use that hand on me.
Yeah. And honestly, dude, without really getting into the ending, the push-pull of Michael Keaton wanting to talk to Abby Cornish and not wanting to talk to Abby Cornish was very jarring, too. Because it's like, get his wife out of here. Bring his wife back. Get the wife. I'm like, dude, pick one. Is she in this scene or is she out of this scene? I think what throws off the wife character, too, is after Alex Murphy gets murdered in the reboot, they have an interaction, but it's not like a real memory. Or it is a real memory, but it's being reconstructed basically. So like, I think at that point I was already kind of checked out on the wife because like, is what I'm seeing real? You know, obviously throughout the rest of the movie it is, but like, I don't know, it just felt kind of undermining to have her first like long scene with him be kind of like basically a dream sequence.
Right. Yeah. They really they dropped the ball with that relationship between him and his wife and him and his kid. I'm just thinking about it now. Like, you know, they give us the family interaction in the beginning of the movie. Not much really happens there. Like, even when him and his wife are alone, there's like this weird tension in the air, but they just decide to bang. So we don't really get anything there. And then when he comes home as Robocop, this should be a huge moment in the film. Like, I'm home for the first time, seeing my wife and kid in person for the first time. I've been away for months. You know, I almost died, but here I am. Here's this huge moment for like emotion. And then it just cuts. Like, we don't spend any time with his wife or his family. Like, how did it go? Did they accept him? Is he going to live there? Like, I want to know what's going on. I want to see how this family dynamic is going to work out now that he's RoboCop. And they completely just, no, we don't care about that. Let's go back to Omnicorp and talk about how RoboCop works and how we're going to take over the world and shit. They really needed to focus on that family a lot more, and they didn't at all.
Yeah. And I think that was a huge problem. Honestly, the family dynamic in the original film, though we like don't get them and we get these flashbacks, like they use this nice little bit of misdirection with the wife. It was like, I have something to tell you. It was like, oh, is he having trouble at home? It was like, no, wife loves him.
Oh, you got me, movie. You got me.
I was like, oh man, like what's this about? Because like there is so much tension and violence in the movie. I'm like, is Murphy like okay with his family? And turns out, yes, he was. So it's even more tragic that they're gone because they had a good connection. They also, in the reboot, I think they're trying to make Abby Cornish too important in the film because she's basically the one that has to choose to make him RoboCop, which I think, honestly, signing a bullshit waiver when you first start your job is to me, kind of a cooler way to become RoboCop. Like, your wife being like, well, what kind of life is that going to be? It's like, it's not really your choice. You know? Like, they imply that he could survive the car explosion. So for someone else to be in charge of, like, whether or not he became RoboCop seemed like a weirdly kind of arbitrary and dubious in terms of ethics way of like getting into this movie. And again, not a major deal, but it's just like, I don't think you should make his wife have to make that choice.
I think it's the movie really trying to like over explain everything, because in the original film it's a little confusing there too, because like he gets shot in the head and it's like, oh, he's dead, and then he's not dead because they're at the hospital, they're trying to bring him back to life, but then he dies while they're operating on him. So a dead guy became RoboCop. It's a little muddy there how exactly they did that. So I think they're like, in the reboot, they're like, okay, he's not dead. He's really badly burnt. He lost some limbs. Since he's still alive, we can't just do anything we want to him. So we need to get consent from the wife. So we're going to add this scene here. And that's kind of, that's the most important scene she really has, because she's the one that decides he's going to be RoboCop.
Right. What I will say this, that it is kind of muddy with like the trauma center in the original movie and how everything goes back and forth. But a line that threw me off in the reboot was when he's looking at his brain, he's like, that's not my brain. He was like, how do you know? How do you know?
You see your brain every morning, Alex Murphy?
Got my brain mirror looking good. But I don't know. I'm not going to say that the original, expertly explains its universe and like has this cohesive storyline that they're saying. But I think what the original movie was going for was like a certain tone and a certain aesthetic. And I think they pull that off. The remake, tonally, I think what the issue is that there's just too many threads that we're pulling at once. And some are far more important than others, which kind of goes back to what we were saying about Balin and kind of what we were saying about like the bad, like who is the bad guy. I think there's a lot of open questions in the movie that's trying to answer questions. and I'm not 100% sure how they landed there, but that's where they landed.
Should we go on to a character that is only in the reboot and not in the original?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mr. Sam Jackson's Pat Novak.
How many, like Thomas King, will pay for their crimes now that Robocop is here?
Who starts the movie. So, that must be an important character. And he's just kind of this, he's pretty much like Fox News, right?
Yeah.
Pretty much just right wing, like, we need military in America now. Or he's just, a cheerleader for us getting robotic police in this country. And I guess he kind of lays out the world that we live in now, because he does explain how Omnicorp has taken over, and he's important for that. But he's a news anchor. So I'll say this: he's a news anchor, but the way they show the news isn't like I'm watching the news. It's kind of like behind the scenes, because I can see the cameras that they're doing. I don't see any of like the HUDs or anything. I don't see the names of people he's talking to or anything. So it's not like you're watching the news. It's like you're in the studio itself.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that because the original RoboCop does have news segments, but it's like we're watching the news. It's not like I'm in the studio. It's like I just turn the news on, and they're both kind of satirical in what they do, because like I said, the reboot's doing like its Fox News thing, but like the level of satire we have in the original is, we might talk about this a little bit more too, but it's amazing, and it really helps to balance the violence we have.
Yeah. There's so many like funny moments, because like it is kind of like it's an interesting storytelling device that like it falls into the background, like, because technically you're kind of watching this through the news. I mean, the way it's presented is like you get those satirical commercials and stuff like that, and like there's no other reason why that would make sense other than you were like getting briefed on what was happening in the news, but it doesn't feel like that. Ultimately, I guess in some ways maybe that's sort of like this reboot too, but like the reboot feels like it's coming in when there's major moments in the movie, and it's like it does this like reset. It's like, what will people think about this type of robot? What will people think about this build and stuff like that? And to your point about importance, like he starts the film out, and the way he closes the film out, he's talking throughout the film. Does he have stock in Omnicorp? Is he like working with Michael Keaton? Is he doing anything other than reporting the events that are happening in the film? It's very strange, and it feels like a cop out to just have Samuel L. Jackson in the movie. I don't know. There could have been a deeper connection to this news network in this corporation, and if it is deeper, it's not apparent to me casually watching the movie.
Yeah. Like I said before, I was unsure who the villain was. I did think Sam Jackson would have a bigger role, or at least a connection to Omnicorp, other than just having them on the show. But yeah, he's just pretty much a background player and not really important. Just kind of Mr. Exposition, or kind of finger on the pulse of where the rest of the country feels about robots. But I thought he would play a much bigger part and like have that secret tie to Omnicorp, and then like maybe he'd be the puppet master. That's what I thought he would be. I mean, like, Sam Jackson, right? Yeah, let's have him be the big baddie. It's like, okay, that's great. No, he's just gonna tell us some shit on the news and say motherfucker the way that he says it.
Yeah,
phenomenal, by the way.
It's like in the original, we know that the news people are background, because they're quite literally background. And I always like this word, universe building. They build out this universe by being so casual about things that are like not very casual. Our Star Wars Peace Laser accidentally misfired 137 known deaths. I'm like, wow, you guys are very nonchalant about this, about California burning right now. And like it's dark and it's funny, and I think that you could say that about the movie writ large. Actually, is that it's dark and funny at the same time. And then this remake, if the news is kind of sort of occupying that same space in terms of narrative, then I guess it's confusing, and I'm not sure why it's there. I feel like the ball was dropped, like you mentioned. Like Sam Jackson had that classic, oh, this looks like a bad guy look about him. And they go nowhere with it, unfortunately.
Yeah, he had crazy hair. It just reminded me of like when he was in Unbreakable. I was like, all right, so he's Sam Jackson with crazy hair? Villain. Got it.
Yeah.
Nope. Not at all. Really dropped the ball there. Like I said, just added to my confusion about who the villain was in this movie. And yeah, it's just not a great character. Not necessary.
Yeah. When you're the last one talking in a movie, you should be more important than this character ends up kind of being.
I don't know why they didn't do what the original did. Like, it was there. Like I said, the blueprint's there. Let's do the parody. Let's just have... You didn't have to be Sam Jackson. You could just have some, like, news anchor and just spouting out ridiculous news nonsense shit, just like Fox News does. Don't mean to get political, but they do. And like, just shoot it that way, like, exactly the way that they do it, and then you could have like that one-to-one kind of connection, like, oh, like they did it like in the original, but now they're doing it like this news network, and it was just so good in the original, and it was so important too, because without all that humor and absurdity, it's just a really violent and kind of depressing movie. And to like have these moments of parody and it's like satire, it's just like it really does remind you, like, oh yeah, I'm watching a movie. Okay, this isn't like this isn't really happening. This isn't some serious shit. The reboot treats itself so seriously.
Yes.
There's no levity. There's no joy. And I feel like that's really important in the Robocop world.
Yeah.
Am I crazy?
I mean, as much as, we both like the series, it's called Robocop.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't Shakespeare, like, what makes the original work is, like you mentioned, this parody, satirical take on it. It's absurd that a robot just walks down the street, shoots everything moving. Like, it's absurd that Dick Jones sends like Clarence to go after Bob. You know what I mean? Like, it's all absurd, but because the news people kind of like let us know it is absurd. It's like, okay, that feeling that you have isn't an accident; it's on purpose. To be able to take the big laser and say, oops, we shot California, lets me know that, like, okay, in this universe, the government can accidentally blow up California. Detroit can just be bankrupt city with like police die by the dozens daily. I don't know how they stay staffed or employed, but like, it's all this stuff that if you don't have this parody angle, you say like, are they serious about this? But because they're not, it works. This remake, because they're trying to be serious, when dumb stuff happens, I'm like, that's kind of dumb.
Yeah, it's just the humor works really well. It's just like you said, world building. It's a fun world to watch, but man, it's definitely a world you wouldn't want to live in. These people are horrible, and they watch stupid shows. I mean, I love that. I'd buy that for $1. I mean, what a classic show within a movie. It's so good. To not have anything like that at all in the reboot just is a complete misstep. I don't know why you didn't have any parody.
I mean, like, it shouldn't be a funny scene, but it is. Like, the mayor of Detroit's been like kidnapped by, like, I guess the ex-mayor or something like that, and he has his list of demands. He's like, helicopters, and I want a car with shitty money. But then you watch the 6,000 SUX commercial, 8.2 miles per gallon. Like, that's funny as hell, dude. Characters in the movie drive that car, and blow up that car. So, like, you're getting all this payoff. Like, if you just blow up a car, like, hey, blow up a car. It's the car from the scene. Plus, the guy was talking about it. And, like, it makes you laugh again.
Yeah, and gas at the gas station it's over $5 for gas too. So it's just even more absurd. There's so many levels, and it's the payoff is so high. It's so great. I love it.
Even like you were saying, TJ Laser, weirdly enough, that is the origin of RoboCop's signature move, and it's like a throwaway like TV show that his kid likes to watch. Like, I don't know, man. Just this stuff is so smart because when you spin a movie and it's like a lot of people don't want to watch a cop have his hand shot off by a bunch of like goons and criminals, but when you backdrop with these moments, it's like okay, we can kind of laugh and go with what otherwise is horrific because they made it kind of funny and they made it like this isn't real, guys. Just like it's Robocop.
Mm-hmm. And that's what it worked incredibly well, and that's why Paul Verhoeven ultimately did the movie. Initially, he read the script, he didn't want to do it because it took itself so seriously, and then it was his wife that convinced him and just gave him the idea of like there's a lot of potential for satire here, and I think you should dive into that. And he did, and the movie is as good as it is because of the satire. Without the satire, it's almost like a run-of-the-mill movie. It's kind of just like, all right, guy becomes a robot cop, all right. But the satire just brings it to a whole nother level.
Yeah. It's like if you're making a movie called Robocop, because we've seen movies like this, like you said, run-of-the-mill, where it has an equally dumb name and is trying so hard to like make the dumb thing cool, and you can't make the dumb thing cool unless the dumb thing is kind of like making fun of us for being dumb, for liking the dumb thing. And it's like, okay, I do like the robot with the leg holster with a gun that doesn't make any sense in terms of its dimensions. It's one of my favorite movie guns of all time, by the way. Just the way, the action on it and everything like that.
Yeah.
That fucking gun.
Again, so, like if you're gonna put Paul, if you're gonna put Weller in that over hot suit that he couldn't fit into the cars, like if you're gonna make the guy sit in his underwear and just film the top of him in the costume, at least make it fun. And they did that, and they made it a lot of fun.
They made it a lot of fun because there is a lot of violence. So maybe we should pivot to the action here.
Sure.
All right. So this Paul Verhoeven, we talked about how bloody it was during our Total Recall episode, and yeah, this is a bloody movie. I mean, just let's start with Alex Murphy's death because we can do a 1-to-1 there. I do want to start with Alex Murphy's death just because, like I said, I saw this movie when I was way too young, and just to see how they torture this guy. Like, we don't have a lot of time with Alex Murphy before he's RoboCop. We just know he's a cop. He might be a good cop, might be a bad cop. We don't spend enough time with him. We know he has a son, and he learned this move for his son, so he's probably a good dad because he wants to, keep his son happy and stuff like that. So to put him in this situation where he's brutally tortured, I don't know how to say this. It's a movie death that is just like in the top tier of like movie death. This is how you kill a character. This is insane. Yeah. The amount of bullets that went through Alex Murphy and just like the blood that they show and the way that like the whole gang is just like laughing and like joking about it and like, teasing Alex. It's like, oh, does it hurt? Does it hurt? It's just like so violent, so over the top, so absurd, so memorable, so incredible. And it makes you feel for Alex because like you don't know this guy and then he's being put through hell like immediately. And you're just like, oh my God, this poor guy. It really puts you on his side right away.
Exactly. Like we mentioned, his intro is so brief. There's not much to it. Like you mentioned, he has a family, so we know that. Seems like he's a decent dad, and he wants to drive the car. That's basically everything we know about this character before he gets murdered. And like you mentioned, because it's such like out there torturous death that like you're like, wow, what they did to that guy was messed up. And it allows you that like if he wants to go on like some sort of like revenge journey, oh, I get that. I saw how the guy died. Yeah. Nope. Like these villains are irredeemable. So when again you get your first bit of violence, so that we'll accept your other violence, because it is hard to basically torture, kill a cop in a movie. But when you give the cop the opportunity to become a Robocop and get his revenge, then it allows us to see him do things that, like, in the wrong context, a lot of the things that Robocop does in the movie are actually like not good at all. Like, in the current sort of like political and police climate. Like, I don't know, like some of the moves that he does, I don't know if people would respond the same way.
That's a fair point. But because we saw Alex Murphy get tortured like that, we're gonna give him some slack and be like, all right, well, this guy had to go through hell, and he is a good Robocop. He's not a corrupt Robocop. So he is stopping the bad guys.
Very very Wizard of Oz there. He's a good Robocop.
Wizard of Oz, they brought that up in the reboot. If he only had a hot. So let's go to Alex Murphy's death in the reboot. Car bomb. Pretty quick. Not, obviously violent. It's a bomb. But we don't really focus on it. Again, it's PG-13. Not allowed to get away with a lot of blood. We've seen car bombs in movies before. I'm just thinking Casino and stuff like that.
Casino is one of the best car bombs.
Yeah. So, that's pretty rough, but, the long, drawn-out torture scene that Alex Murphy had to do in the original, I just don't think... I don't know how you could top that. So it might have been a smart choice just to make it a car bomb. Like, we can't really compete with that, so here's a car bomb.
Yeah, I don't know, like, you're right, especially in PG-13. I don't think there's a way for you to film that and show, like, a torturer's death that, like, works the same at all. I think you'd actually physically have to, like, imply torture for it to even get there. But, like, that's not going to work either, to your point, because you're not going to get nearly as many squibs into this guy as they were able to in Robocop. So, you're right. The car bomb is fast. We see a little bit of aftermath because, like we mentioned, his wife has to sign off on him becoming a good Robocop. So, we see that, he's missing a leg and he's burned up and stuff. And he's not going to be able to do anything that, like, he normally would be able to. But, yeah, when you start at one of the greatest movie deaths of all time, and you boil it down into a car bomb, I think you're right. Like, you almost have to just concede we're not going to be able to pull this off. Moving on.
Yeah. So I don't hate that decision. If you have a problem with it, I think the biggest problem is just the PG-13 rating, because that really limits what you can do. Yeah. So obviously, car bombs, it's okay. Should we just go into the action of the movie too? Because it's PG-13, it's very limited what they could do when they show violence. A lot of it is Robocop shooting robots.
Yeah.
They kind of did like what the Ninja Turtles did. Like in the Ninja Turtles in the comics, they killed like actual ninjas, and then in the cartoon they killed robots. They kind of did a Ninja Turtles here. They have Murphy killing a lot of robots.
Yeah, it's like it kills a lot of robots, even when he is shooting at normal people. Like, it gave me big like video game vibes, like Doom or like Duke Nukem type deal.
Because like video game vibes.
They'll go to like a thermal camera, so you're not seeing humans getting shot. You're kind of seeing like outlines of humans getting shot. You see a lot of his targeting systems. So it's like targeting system, bullets flying. You don't really see where these bullets are landing all the time. And it's it's a slick kind of aesthetic that's been, I think, done so much that like it felt like, all right, I could just go play Call of Duty, if this is what you're going to show me. So yeah, the PG-13 rating, I think, is probably what's causing a lot of this implied violence versus actual like action,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really did feel like a video game, those action scenes. It was just like completely, it's all CGI, you could tell. And then it's just like very fast paced, very quick, and it's like you got the music just blasting, and it's like all right. So I did kind of check out during those action scenes in the reboot. What can you do?
Like,
it's so limited.
If someone that's watching this hasn't seen the movie for whatever reason, just like go play Time Crisis. Like that's what the action felt like in this movie.
Now the original. There's so much violence. Maybe we should get to a character we haven't really talked about. That's Ed 209.
Please put down your weapon. You have 20 seconds to comply.
the real Robocop, because he's really a robot. He's more like a cyborg cop, Alex Murphy. Ed 209 and the original, Dick Jones, big failure in the board meeting. Do you want to talk about this? Because
I love this scene so much. Like Dick Jones is doing this corporate presentation. He's like, the future of military tech. Ed 209. You see this thing come out with maybe one of the weakest point of the movies, but like really well done. Is stop motion.
Yeah,
you get this robot design. Like you see the actual like whatever prop that they made with this Gatling guns for hands. Like this, he's not doing any like he's not helping kids cross the street. That's not the type of policing this guy's doing. His hands are guns.
Edward Scissor Guns.
Yeah, Scissor Guns.
Okay, that's not.
I like that. And like I said, with the stop motion, they like show the robot kind of like boom, boom into the boardroom, and like Dick Jones is so confident. Again, we see this character shine in this moment of complete failure when they pull out a box that's got like a silver gun, and he's like, "Go ahead, aim it at Ed 209," and they get Kenny from whatever, maybe the copying room, I don't know, to aim a gun at the robot. And at this point, you're like, okay, the robot seems to work. He's like, you have 30 seconds to put down the gun. He's like, all right, robot, I got it. And the guy's like, oh, this is crazy. And he puts the gun down, and everyone's like, all right, cool display, Ed. 15 seconds. He's like, what the fuck, man? And like, you see scientists that can't get the thing to shut down, and like, Kenny's running around the room, and they're like, pushing, get the hell away from me, dude. And ultimately, another, like, minutes within the movie, when another horrific movie death, Ed 209, full metal jacket, guns out, pop, 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 pop. Gatling guns this guy to death.
I am now authorized to use physical force.
No one falls out of a window this time, but like you see this guy full of bullet holes and kind of like foreshadowing what's going to happen to our friend Murphy. And look, when you do a corporate board presentation and you kill someone on the board and your robot didn't work, well, that's when our boy Bobby Morgan's going to step in. He's going to, I got a different idea. And honestly, to a certain extent, Dick Jones really is a bad guy here, because how could you not understand that? Like, of course someone else is going to have to step in. Honestly, he did him a favor, because no one's like, arrest him. They're like, wait a minute, let's hear about this other robot plan, the less killy robot plan that actually works. What a great scene.
Yeah. Turning Kenny into human Swiss cheese. It was just, wow. I remember seeing that. Like, every time I would see like a movie when I was a kid, and then like something bad happens to an adult, I'd always think, oh, that's gonna happen to my dad or my mom. So I'd always like, oh man, you don't work with robots, do you? So yeah, incredibly violent. Lots of blood, little squib things just blowing up like all over his body, from like his toes to his ears. Man, it's insanely over the top, the violence, and it definitely sets the tone early on in that movie.
Yeah. And like, again, things that like aren't really funny, but like in this universe are kind of funny, like him running around and being like, help me, and like people just pushing him away. Like I was like, wow, this is really visceral, and like and like it is in some ways a commentary on like what human beings would do in that scenario. I know I'd push that guy the hell away from me. I don't know, that like, if you didn't handle that scene properly, it's just this violent thing that like you wouldn't know where to reset. But they immediately go right back into corporate mode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
they did. That was a tough one. Actually, sir, I have another plan, and I just like that. Like the RoboCop is kind of like, yeah, you had a better idea, but it like you flubbed the presentation. And here's my kind of like junior exec version of the Ed 209. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, their reaction really helps set the tone too, because they're not like horrified, like, oh my god, well, poor Kenny. They're just like, well, what do we got to do now, Dick? It's so they really do have set that corporate is evil mentality because they don't really give a shit about their coworker who just died. Even like when Bob's in the elevator, like after he successfully laid his pitch onto the old man, he's like, "Well, what about Kenny?" He's like, "Fuck him." Like Bob. Yeah. So Bob, even though he's like the guy who made Robocop, he's still kind of a piece of shit himself, you know.
Yeah, and funny enough, another one of the tricky things, but like the old man character, like originally he's supposed to be more like obviously evil, but he just kind of played as like a nice old guy. And they're like, hey, this kind of works. And, like I do like that the head of the corporation like is plausibly a nice guy, even though like everyone else is doing all this crazy evil. Like I kind of like that we didn't get bogged down in like how bad the old man could be. And you know, we'll talk about like how the movie ends. It kind of pays off in the end too.
But moving on with Ed 209, so that's his first scene. The second time we see Ed 209 is when Directive 4 kicks in. Robocop's about to arrest Dick Jones, and then Robocop's malfunctioning because he can't arrest a high up OCP officer, so he's doing some terrible dancing moves, like Elaine and Seinfeld. Was reminding me
the little kids.
And then Ed 209 just goes back in like with that Jaguar growl and just like starts blasting. And then, like, just decimating Robocop, you know, cracks his visor so we see his eye. I love that moment. And then, you know, after all this intense action of Ed 209, Robocop's just like, I gotta get the fuck out of here. He just runs down the stairs. And Ed 209's like, yeah, I'm gonna chase him. And then Ed 209 is just like, oh shit, stairs. What is this? So it's like a little kid just like slowly putting its huge foot on it and then like gets it there. It's like, okay, I'm good. And then immediately, comedically timed perfectly, just slips, falls, and starts crying like a little fucking baby. Yeah. I love that moment.
That's such a good moment. Such a good moment. Of like, the amount of time too, it's like the perfect amount of time of him testing the stairs and being like, all right, okay. And it just like, you know, Charlie Brown and Lucy it like down the stairs. It's so funny. And like, what's even better is like Robocop doesn't finish the job. He's like, all right. I mean, you take these like two badass characters like Ed 209 and Robocop, you put them in this like serious scene, because like you said, the visor's cracked, he's getting shot up, he's got to escape, he didn't know about Directive 4. So then like just seamlessly transitioned into basically slipping on a banana peel on the stairs and then like taking Robocop and being like, that was lucky. Like, I don't know, it's just like the movie slips in and out of those tones so well. So well. I mean, one of the scenes that really stuck out to me, even when I was younger, was the scene with like the creeps that are trying to like sexually assault that woman in the movie. Yeah. And like this is one of RoboCop's first like missions, was like, I solve crimes. And they're holding like this guy is trying to like assault this woman, and then he grabs her as a hostage, and she's like, you know, help. And RoboCop shoots through her skirt or her dress and just nails this guy in the dick. I mean, he's got killer. Just takes a .44 Magnum right to this guy's, family jewels, and I'm like, whoa,
yeah,
whoa, and like this movie will do that. And the next scene say, I'll buy that for $1. I just love that they're able to like Paul Verhoeven is able to just play that line so expertly. I really can't think of a lot of other movies that are able to pull that off.
Yeah, it is incredible because like there's this woman who's about to get raped, and then he shoots the guy in the dick, so that's funny enough. And then like she goes to thank RoboCop, and then here's a victim of sexual assault, and then he's just like, if you need number for our crisis center, you know, it's like this awkward robot trying to comfort this woman in like the worst moment in her life. It's what a balancing act, and he nails it in this movie. It's really incredible.
ma'am, you've been you've been in a high trauma situation. Like, wow, man. Like, it's again, like that in itself, like you just mentioned, like that's funny, but like you just went from a scene where someone's about to get raped to then a person being mutilated to like, let me get you a phone number. Like, you completed this like dark arc with a funny joke. So they do that so often in this movie, and it's like really impressive. Even one of the little commercials when they're playing that battleship game is Nukem. Like, I don't know, they found this tone that just works, man.
I just want to finish off Ed 209 really quick.
Yeah.
So that was our second encounter with Ed 209. We just recapped. And then third encounter with Ed 209, it's like, well, now it's Murphy like versus Ed 209. And Murphy don't fuck around because Murphy's got those fun guns that the Clarence and his boys had. So as soon as Ed 209's like, he's getting ready to attack, Murphy's like, fuck that. Just blows him away with one shot. It's like so satisfying. I just love, I don't know, I just love the simplicity of it.
Yeah,
like Indiana Jones, right? Like the guy's got a sword, Indiana Jones just got a gun. Fuck this shit. It's so good how they do it in this movie.
That's one of my favorite movie trivia things too, where it's like Harrison Ford was kind of sick and he was like, I don't want to do this.
Let's shoot him.
Yeah. But like, it's, again, even that simple scene is a cool reveal because like he just walks up and he's behind the car. So like, all right, it's just Robocop. How's he going to take on Ed 209? He just racks up the rifle. And like, wow. And like you mentioned, that aftermath of like, it rips Ed 209 in half. So you took the most formidable thing in the movie. You took Robocop, who like is the second most formidable thing in the movie, and you just put Robocop over Ed 209 because he blew up. It was a great scene, man.
Fantastic. We do have Ed 209 in the reboot. We have several Ed 209s. We see them in the opening scene, and I don't know exactly what country it is, but you know, just walking the streets of the country, and then you know, they're Ed 209s. Kind of reminded me of like Metal Gear 4, just these walking robots walking down the streets. And he's okay, I guess. Robocop does fight a bunch of Ed 209s at the end of the movie. But, you know, we don't have any cool introduction to them. They kill a kid. That's like, fuck. That's terrible. Like, what am I watching, dude? Like, show me a guy in an executive meeting getting blown away and then immediately, like, somebody coming in to, like, pitch their idea for a human cyborg thing. But, like, to just have it kill a kid, and it's like, all right, well, I guess that robot is evil and it sucks. But, like, we don't really do anything with the Ed 209s until the end. And it's like, it's not satisfying, I guess.
No. And like we mentioned in the original film, like you mentioned, the 3 separate Ed 209 interactions. Ed kills Kenny or whatever. That, crazy. Kenny dies in a similar way that Alex Murphy dies. So it was like, all right, Ed 209 is nothing to mess with. That's like 7 guys shooting you point blank range. The second interaction with Ed 209 getting the upper hand on him. Like, okay, like Ed 209, like rock, paper, scissors, Ed 209 beats Robocop. You know, Robocop beats some guy's junk, but like, you know, that's how that works. But then, you know, staircase thing was funny, but like doesn't really minimize Ed 209 because if there isn't a staircase,
if there's no stairs, Ed 209 is gonna win.
Yeah. So like you have all these different opportunities with Ed 209, and like because the way the movie is split, there's basically team. You know, Team Dick and then Team sort of Morton. All right, like Ed 209, there's a reason for Ed 209 to kind of win out this battle. When you're looking at the reboot, what was really confusing for me, and I think, again, the movie confuses things, is that Robocop's able to fight all these Ed 209s, and he's running this simulation or something like that. And what's weird about that is I'm glad that it works because, like, the scene's actually one of the better action sequences in the movie. But like, is his technology better than their technology? When you had the scene where Alex Murphy couldn't shoot as fast as a regular robot, when he's fighting the robot later, like, okay, I get that he's like integrated to the software, but his software is so much better that he can just take out 7 things that are presumably running the same software. I was confused about that.
Yeah. They didn't really establish how threatening Ed 209 can be, I think, is the major problem of the climax of the movie. Because we saw him make Kenny Swiss cheese. We saw him almost take out Robocop halfway through the movie. We haven't seen Ed 209 really take out anybody other than a kid. And, he's a big robot. I mean, there's a bunch of them, and he's got big guns, looks imposing, but we don't know how he's going to stack up against Robocop. And then apparently you just need to be a normal civilian, and he completely shuts down. That's his staircase kryptonite. Lewis jumps in front and saves Robocop, because there is a point where like the Ed 209s are just blasting and almost killing Robocop, but then Lewis jumps in and is able to stop them. So that happens. But you didn't set him up earlier in the movie, so I'm not really caring about the matchup between Robocop and Ed 209. It was just set up so much brilliantly in the original.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, like stop motion, we've talked about it in the past. Like I'm generally not as big on it. It's not my favorite thing. Except if you're watching the Terminator. But like in this moment, like I thought it worked really well with just getting the scope of like the imposing nature of Ed 209 in the original film. In this remake, shooting like a kid, it doesn't really work. And there's just too many moments that undermine the Eds in general in this remake, because like we see the sequence where Alex Murphy's able to take out a bunch of the smaller, more like cybernetic, humanoid robots. And he does that pretty much with ease, and is even able to take out that sort of side bad guy that we have. Like Ed 209, like you mentioned, he doesn't have that same allure, because we don't get that kind of first scene. So when he's just taking them on, like the only reason this is a problem is because there's more than one Ed 209. In that original film, one Ed 209 is enough to take out any number of RoboCops. Like it's a good establishing kind of shots to make this fight feel clean and climatic, versus the remake, which is like we don't really see him in action. So my only frame of reference is this one fight, really, and it seems to be very manageable.
Yeah, you did bring up a good point earlier, how Ed 209 sort of gets replaced by Robocop, like because Ed 209 didn't really work, so we got Robocop here. So it is kind of that, Dick Jones versus Bob Morton's creation, which one is going to win. So it is important that we do see Robocop eventually, get the one up on Ed 209 and able to take him out, because he is supposed to be the better, or the more advanced technology, I guess. That's not happening in the reboot. We don't know that Robocop is going to replace these Ed 209s. I mean, we don't know anything about these two. There's no correlation. There's no relationship. So it doesn't matter that he's fighting them at the end. They're just in his way. But it really matters in that original film.
Right. Because Dick Norris is able to say that, like, his theory is that I have the superior robot. And Morton's like, well, I don't, but here's my opportunity. And so there's always that question mark early on, is like, is Robocop able to take on Ed? And, midway through the movie, your answer is no. And by the end, like, really, it turns out it's just like really a question of firepower. So I don't know. Like, it's a much more compelling thing in the original movie because the dichotomy of our villains. And in the remake, like I said, there's no dichotomy. They're all kind of using the same operating system. Why is one better than the other? Like, that's the question for me. Because by their own admission, this RoboCop as well is not as good as this other technology, but it's not like Team A versus Team B. Okay, like make one less shitty or make one better. Like tweak it. I don't know. There's too much tweaking of RoboCop in the movie, so I don't know where RoboCop stands at any given moment in the film.
Any other action sequences you want to talk about in either film? The first robbery is kind of funny with the guy going, fuck me, fuck me, fuck me. I mean, I just want to say it because it's a funny scene.
Yeah. Well, the toxic waste in The remake.
Oh, right.
The toxic waste in the original.
Yes, the toxic waste. Oh man, poor meal. This terrified me as a kid. I did not want to play in any toxic waste after this movie. Let me tell you, the makeup and prosthetics that they did, incredible. It was just, oh my god, we love practical effects. They hold up so well in this original RoboCop film. Yeah, when he's like, his skin's melting, and it's just like, oh man, like when he goes up to Nash and he's freaking out, I'd be like, yeah, I'd be freaking out too.
Don't touch me, man!
Wow, what an amazing makeup job and prosthetics.
Yeah.
Can't say enough about I gotta give him a shout out again just because Rob Bottin and team. What amazing job, guys.
It's such a good scene too, because like we're getting into like kind of like our climax before the climax, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're taking on the Roger game that has caused you so much strife this whole time. And you mentioned it's like, oh, he's got the jump on me. It's like, fuck you, RoboCop. And nope, slipped him. You drove at first into toxic waste. And the fact that like the van doors open up and all the waste comes out of it, and then you get that reveal. I mean, it's just such a really, really, again, dark scene that gets funny at times. We're like, get the hell away, man. Like, they just, once again, they play in that space so well. And it just, because that's a fairly long scene. Like, his progression kind of like breaking down, again, talking about the prosthetics and stuff. He goes through different levels of like melting, I guess. And they get to mess with that so well. And I mean, I really appreciate that sequence, even though like ultimately, is it that important? No, but it was cool to watch.
I'm just gonna go to the reboot, I guess, really quickly. Like they do mention like a type of bullet that could like pierce the RoboCop armor.
How do we stop him?
50 caliber and above.
And they bring it up several times, and like different people at different points in the movie have it, but it never seems like the threat it should be. Is that just me? Like they keep bringing up this fucking ammo in the reboot, and then like they keep shooting RoboCop, but it doesn't really seem to even slow him down at any point. These bullets.
Yeah. I think it didn't seem that necessary, like important, because like you mentioned, they bring it up and they don't really use it.
Yeah. Like the biggest damage he had was when he shot his own arm off.
Yeah.
Like the biggest threat to RoboCop was RoboCop. It seems
I also thought
stupid.
like the line about like if they got a clean shot on him, he'd feel the most pain he's ever felt, ever.
If Maddox hits you, everything but your life support will shut down. You'll feel more pain than you've ever felt in your life.
I'm like, why? Seems like that doesn't need to happen, given the technology. Because like, if you can pump the guy with dopamine, couldn't you like, oh, in a fail-safe scenario where you get shot, we just pump you so much adrenaline, you're not going to feel anything? Like, like kind of like a regular human being. You know, you made him less like. At least we could go into shock. You know, like this guy just it's the most pain you're ever going to feel.
But he's like not even. He's just lungs, a head, and a hand. How much pain is he gonna really feel? It's so weird.
It's like, because in that scenario, it's like you built that in. Like, you know, because we see this lung brain thing, right? We know like the kind of human parts of this RoboCop, and like when he takes damage and like there's different holes that end up in his suit and stuff like that. Like, we kind of know sort of what the end game for him would be, depending on where you shoot him. You don't really know that in the original film. Like, I guess like the face maybe, but like, he's just much more robotic because we don't have that reveal. So like, as he's getting damaged, I'm not as concerned about him. And honestly, I'm not concerned about the reboot guy either. But, you know, I do know that he's more vulnerable, at least from what I've seen. But to your point, didn't matter because they keep talking about this bullet. And the old Chekhov's gun theory. If you bring up a gun in the first act, you got to use it before the end of the play. And if you bring up this super bullet, someone better at least chamber it.
I mean, they used it. They used it on him. Like when he went to kill Valen, like all his men had the bullet. It didn't slow him down at all. He was able to kill all of them and Valen without any issues.
Yeah,
and it was like a rocket or like a hand grenade or something, or a grenade launcher or something. That was like the biggest threat. It wasn't even the specific bullet. It was so weird. I don't know.
Yeah. I will say another interesting scene in the original was when the cops are basically like told to like take him out, and like just that SWAT team of cops shooting at him. Like I thought that was like really cool scene, and just like like it's kind of more of the same in the movie. Like basically everyone's getting shot at with that frequency, but it was pretty cool.
Don't really have much to talk about. I do want to just talk about the music a little bit. Because all right. So during that scene you're talking about, the only thing I remember is the music. So because that amazing score of the original RoboCop. I mean, Basil Pordoris. I mean, he wrote an iconic theme. I love the RoboCop theme. It's one of my favorite movie themes.
Wow.
Dun, 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 dun. I love the RoboCop movie theme. It's so iconic, and they did use it very briefly in the reboot. So at least they did that right.
Yeah, I did hear it in the reboot, and when I heard it, I was like, that should be.
It should.
That theme is just like, it's very kind of like bombastic. It like introduces, it's like a stinger. It's like you introduce this character. When that comes on, RoboCop's in action. A good song like that in a movie like this is like, that feels like what RoboCops do. Like that sound coming out of the speaker is RoboCop to me, and it's perfect. It really is.
And there's not really, I guess, any pop songs. I mean, he goes to the club to get Nash one time, so you do hear some music in the background. I think it might be a Skinny Puppy song to anybody who likes industrial music. I think it's a Skinny Puppy song. But yeah, it's a very, orchestral score. And then they kind of do that in the reboot, but like when they go to the action sequences, then it gets kind of to that rock music, and it's just like trying to be cool, and it just isn't cool because it's been done already. So I'm kind of meh on the music in the reboot, and love the music of the original.
Yeah, like you mentioned, reboot. It's been done. Yeah. You get some like I said, some like Back in Black playing like shooting stuff. It's like got it, seen it.
Yeah.
The action is so generic in the remake that it's like whatever. Like you mentioned, the orchestral score works really well in the original, but like again, just that RoboCop theme when that plays. It just elevates anything you're seeing on screen, and that's why it's one of the few songs that actually works in the reboot.
I'll say the Wizard of Oz song. I thought that worked. I thought that was good at making Jack Earl Haley's character a piece of shit to kind of root against. So I thought that was funny.
And you know what? To be fair, he had one of the stronger characters in the movie. I think if they had let him kind of run about a little bit more, that would have been that would have been good. It actually reminded me of I forget the actor, but like the bad guy in the movie Elysium, like just how crazy he is in the film.
Oh, I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, it's a Matt Damon kind of futuristic movie, but like there's a guy who's just like he's just nuts. He comes out and he's just like ready to rip off anything. Like that guy, he didn't quite hit that level of villainry, but like he was towing that line. I was like, this guy is scary. Why don't we use more of him? And it's that kind of unceremonious end at the film. It's like, all right, whatever.
Yeah. He was definitely a better villain than Valen. If they could have figured out a way to kind of make him kind of the guy that is responsible for Murphy's death, I think that would have been better just because he's a better character than Valen was.
I think they like told that line of, like we mentioned that like Ed 209 versus RoboCop feeling. I think he told that line of like, my robots are better than you, but he didn't embrace it enough, like I think his motivation should have been, I screw whatever the top of the corporation wants. I want this RoboCop out of here because like my stuff's way better, and they just don't do that.
I mean, that's about it. We've been talking about this for a couple hours now, so I'm pretty good. I think we touched upon every subject.
only thing I'll say is kind of wrap it up because I think we like gloss over, but we didn't really talk about Gary Oldman's character in the movie. Yeah, I mean, whatever. I know he's a major character, but like he's so wishy-washy throughout the film that like, you know, by the end they try to make him like this good guy, but like it's just I've seen you do a lot of bad stuff, man.
Yeah, honestly. Like they introduce him, like he's at this I guess this clinic where all these amputees like are getting all these robotic limbs, and it's like, oh, he seems like a good guy. And then when like Michael Keaton's character goes up to him, he's like, I don't want this used for any like military application or any violence. And he's like, oh no, it won't be like that. And it's like, yes, it's exactly what it's for. So it's like he's completely just like ignoring his morals and his ethics and everything. And then he's like seems like the good guy, but then he's also the good guy that takes away what humanity Alex has. So it's like, that's why again I was confused. Is this our baddie? Because you know maybe we're just led to believe he's good, but he's really just kind of going down this rabbit hole of like evil. Like I do want to control everything. I do want to make this violent thing. I do want all the money. And like when he like almost took the money at the end, he's like, I want 10 years of funding and I want the Murphys taken care of. Like, and I'll kill Robocop. I was like, okay, so I guess he's a villain. But then like they decided to make him good. So I didn't really care for him.
Yeah, I feel like there's just a lack of commitment to the character.
Yes.
Just pick one, right? Like that's kind of my thing. Or like if you don't pick one, make the switch more apparent. Because like, yeah, by then he was willing to do the right thing, but like to your point, he had just accepted like this completely different offer. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. And it wasn't like he put a lot of guardrails or brakes on what they were doing in RoboCop. He just went with it. And actually, like his lab assistant was like, yo, you're taking this dopamine level too low. He's like, take it lower.
Yeah.
Like, you're not a good guy.
No.
So, you know, I don't care how many Senate trials you speak at. You're more responsible than most of the people in the film because you understand the science more.
Yeah.
So,
again, added to my confusion. Who's the villain in this movie? Didn't really know until the very end. So
yeah. That was that character too. The ending of the original RoboCop, we've got like you mentioned the Ed 209 standing off with RoboCop. We realized that Dick Jones has basically a fourth directive built into RoboCop that he's not aware of. Basically, RoboCop cannot interact with any like OCP. What would you say, like senior board members, like basically anyone at a high level of OCP, RoboCop just shuts down. And, you know, he has to get saved by Lewis. He has, like, they basically, RoboCop gets so screwed up between the Ed 209 fight and, like, a bunch of the cops start coming after him that they have to escape. Lewis gets him out of there. We get that super cool reveal of his face in that moment. Dick Jones gives Clarence's gang basically a tracker so that they can find RoboCop. They go to the steel mill. They have their shootout. With the toxic waste and all the other stuff. RoboCop's able to win out that fight, but he's got one last thing to do. He's got to take out Dick Jones. So he goes back to OCP, goes back to the 94th or 120th floor, depending on little movie trivia there. And he faces off against Dick Jones again, this time in front of the whole board. Part of the reason Dick Jones is trying to get rid of RoboCop is because RoboCop's been recording different conversations, and he knows all the dirt with Dick Jones. RoboCop plays back a sequence which basically indicates that Dick is basically the bad guy.
He goes, Bob Morton made a mistake, and it's time to erase that mistake. I just love that. Sorry.
Bob Morton made it, and he keeps playing back. I love it. The old man fires him, which allows RoboCop to, boom, shoots him, Dick Jones that is, shoots him out a fucking window off of the 95th or 120th floor, whichever one you're watching. And it's like, yeah, it's a good shooting, kid. This is the old man. It's like, what's your name? Murphy.
Oh, RoboCop. Bam! That's how you end a fucking movie, man. He looks at him.
Hell yeah.
It's like a Murphy,
Hell yeah.
man.
Does it make sense? No.
And Dick Jones, it's stop motion when he's flailing out the window. His arms look ridiculously long when he's falling out the window.
Yeah.
So that didn't age well, but all the practical effects look pretty good in the movie.
Yeah, yeah. And I love the fact that like the technicality is like the old man being like, "You're fired."
Uh-huh.
Like it's just such a clean, good '80s movie ending there. Like you're fired, and boom, and he's fired. He's fired out of the window. It's great. Remake.
I'll give it a shot.
Sure.
All right. When Alex Murphy is trying to get the guys that killed him, he goes all the way, he gets Valen, like I said, and then he goes to the corrupt cops, and then he goes finds the chief of police, and then at that point he's about to arrest or shoot. I don't know what the fuck he's gonna do, but it doesn't matter because Jack Earl Haley is watching him the whole time, and he shuts him down immediately. And then Robocop is taken back to Omnicorp, and then it's at that point that there's this whole backplot of like the senators have to make this vote if they want the robotic cops in America. So there's a Senate vote happening. He's also like going back and forth with this one specific senator. Doesn't really fucking matter, okay? Anyways, so the vote comes in. There are going to be robotic cops in America. And at this point, Michael Keaton decides, all right, we guess we gotta kill RoboCop because if it gets out, if he starts talking to the media or whatever, then we're done for. So let's kill him. So they decide to kill him. He talks to the doctor, Gary Oldman's character. He's like, you need to kill him. And then this is when Gary Oldman starts to turn around, and he looks like he was going to do it as long as he gets funding and the wife is taken care of. But we know that he's going to go and save RoboCop. And he also tells the wife that, oh yeah, he's dead. He didn't make it. Sorry about that. Shit happens, whatever. So RoboCop gets saved by the doctor. And then at that point, he goes to Omnicorp, I think, and he has Lewis help him. And Lewis goes there with a bunch of cops. And Lewis says, just don't go out there armed, man. We got to go out there unarmed or else we're going to get shot. So then a huge action sequence happens between RoboCop and the 209s that we talked about. Murphy's got to get up to get Sellers. He's got to stop him. So a bunch of fighting happens. Lewis saves RoboCop a couple times, saves him from an 209. He saves him from Jack Earl Haley's character. But then he gets shot, but it's non-fatal, so it's okay. We don't got to worry about Lewis. So RoboCop then decides to go confront Sellers, but like you said before, the confusion, like, tell his wife she can't come here. I need to see his wife. Now she needs to come up here. So the wife is with Sellers. They're all up on the roof because they're waiting for a helicopter to come because they want to get the fuck out of there before RoboCop gets there. They got the wife. And this just comes up with Jack Earl Haley's character, like when RoboCop's going to shoot him, but he has like a red wristband or something that glows, and you can't shoot anybody with him. That's why Lewis had to shoot him. And well, wouldn't you know, Michael Keaton Sellers also has that same stupid wristband fuck thingy. So RoboCop's like, I'm going to shoot you. And he's like, you can't, not with this. And then like, no, his humanity's winning. He's going to shoot him. He's raising the gun. He shoots him. And Sellers shoots him at the same time, but it doesn't matter because he's a fucking robot, so we knew he wasn't going to fucking die. And Sellers is dead on the roof. He gets RoboCop's down, but we know he's not going to fucking die. But still, we think he's going to die. His family's surrounding him, so probably going to die. I don't know. No, he's not going to die. So that ends Sellers. He's dead. RoboCop's, we don't know what's happened to RoboCop. Now we're back on Novak's show. The president, he said, fuck you, Senate. We're not doing that shit because I talked to the doctor. And you could see that news clip right here. The doctor said they were bad. So because of that, robots will not be in America. And Sam Jackson still not happy, still very, very, very mad. And we know that RoboCop is alive because we see clips of him walking through the laboratory. And then they tease us with the silver armored RoboCop that they already showed earlier in the movie and took away from us. The end. Did I miss anything?
Yeah, I mean, only thing I'll say is that, like, the big issue here, right, is that in the original film, Directive 4 is a mystery. And, like, it comes up a few times again, subtly, which may not be the right word for RoboCop, there's like this fourth directive that's classified that we don't know about. Pretty sweet reveal that like board members can't get shot. Very convenient, ties into the story, very corporate, love it. In the beginning of this movie, you have the red assets, which one of the reporters has to wear the red wristband, so the Ed 209 thingies don't shoot her, and whatever Middle Eastern country they're portraying. And then it just shows up again at the end.
And RoboCop also can't shoot. Like we didn't know that. They just tell us when. Yeah.
It's just weak. Like you get your little like fast pass from like Six Flags you put on, and RoboCop can't shoot you, and it's not personal, right? Like the board member thing, it's personal. It's a great little twist. Sets up this awesome scene where like you're fired. There's not going to be a you're fired scene. It's just like you mentioned, my humanity sort of won out kind of enough to shoot this one guy.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Is RoboCop still like an OmniCorp asset? Because like if they're getting investigated and stuff like that, do you actually want RoboCop patrolling the streets? I don't know. Like there's no real track record of him functioning. So like I don't know, man. Like it's just such a weird, kind of silly ending. And the Senate hearing, what happens to Gary Oldman's character? What happens to everybody else? Cool, we got rid of Sellers. All right, Samuel Jackson's a little upset, but like what is the resolution here? And I don't know what that is.
Michael Keaton's dead. I think the whole thing. Yeah, and robots won't be in America, I guess.
Except for this one robot.
Except for this one robot. Well, he's cyborg, so I guess it's okay.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because he shows his face all the time.
Yeah, it's so muddy because you didn't solve the problem, right? Like, I guess if RoboCop is still in action, it's actually a sign that, like, things aren't better. You know? Like, they somehow made it like RoboCop's continued existence is actually a bad thing for, like, the world. If you think about it.
Yeah, and like I said before, OmniCorp still has the robots around the world, and like, well, maybe OmniCorp not anymore because OCP took over, but OCP is still a thing, and like, yeah, we still have robots in the rest of the world. It didn't really solve anything. It didn't really take out an evil. Like I said, like Sellers didn't seem that evil to me until he decided to unplug Murphy. Up until that point, he just seemed like a regular billionaire CEO just trying to make money.
I mean, honestly, if you look at what he did besides, like, I guess holding the wife hostage at the end, I mean, is he even going to get that much jail time? Like, you know, like if he did get caught for his actions, all right, like you fudge the RoboCop findings and like the science behind that, you know, that's a PR problem more than a legal problem at that point.
Why did they even need to kill Murphy? Because they were afraid he would find out what they've been doing, that they're really the ones in control when he thought he was in control? Is that what they were worried about? I'm not even clear on that.
Well, it's like if you look at Dick Jones, right, who just like had the whole thing like locked down. He knew exactly what he wanted to do from beginning to end. His only failure was the Ed 209, went a little too far, right? A very competent and capable villain that like had an end game. Sellers is constantly winging it throughout the movie, right? Like, okay, we got the like we can't do these robots, so let's try this robot. It works, so now we got to keep using this robot. No one's in control, right? Like the marketing guys are like, what do we do? Like everyone just doesn't know how the robot works. Not even the guy that made the robot. So the whole time you're just sitting there like, he didn't do anything other than pressuring a scientist who should have known better. And like I said, everyone's involved. So like the police chief's involved. Nobody's clean.
Yeah. They just became villains like for no reason. Like at the end of the movie, it's like, okay, now we're just gonna hold your wife hostage now. Like, why? Well, I don't know what we're doing here. It's stupid. I hate it.
Yeah. And like you were saying, like the idea of like, what if RoboCop talks? I mean, The whole premise was that we're going to stop his wife from seeing him, and we're going to stop her from talking to the press. We're going to stop RoboCop from talking to the press. We're going to stop the doctor from talking. Like, okay, and then when they do talk to the press, I don't know. Like, then what? I would just say he's defective. Like, you can still spin out of this. Like, I don't know. The whole thing was a mess.
Yeah, that escalated in a way it didn't have to. I don't know why it just became to like this violent ending for Michael Keaton Sellers. I don't know. It's really stupid. Like I said, you didn't really map out who the villain was, so I wasn't sure who I'm supposed to root against until the very end. Because I guess Michael Keaton's back, he's holding the wife hostage, but that wasn't until like the very fucking end.
Right. To be honest, like that RoboCop, he was more conflicted to me than heroic. Yeah. Like, by taking that human interface out of the original one, you're just able to kind of operate like, okay, yeah, sure, shooting everybody's like not really policing, but it's a consistent character, and everyone interprets what's happening as a positive. So I'm all right. If this universe thinks this is a good thing, so do I. This remake, I don't know who's being good or bad at any given point, including RoboCop.
All right, I think we're there, Reggie. We've talked RoboCop versus RoboCop, so it's verdict time. Reggie, should the RoboCop reboot from 2014 exist?
Now, I did watch the 2014 RoboCop around the time it came out. Like I said, it wasn't in theaters, but it was, like you said, Netflix or something like that. It was streaming somewhere, or you could get a DVD. And I remember absolutely hating it, thinking it was like just a bad movie, and was confused as to why it existed. Weirdly enough, this time around, watching it again, I felt like I hated it less. I'm not sure why. I'm really not sure why. But like, I think because some of it was cohesive, and I think Gary Oldman's performance, I think I had more appreciation of this time, because I wasn't so like thrown off by like the suit being not the right suit. Like, I already had that shock in my system. I knew he was going to be black, so like I just watched the movie this time. It's trying. Yeah, boy, is it trying, and it's failing. Boy, is it failing. There's just not enough heart in the movie. There's not enough humor in the movie. The action is watered down, and when your source material, like a guy can get shot in the junk, you've got the funny commercials between sets, just the humor of the villains, all of the villains, whether it's Charles Bodrick, whether it's Dick Norris, whether it's Bob Morton, like they're all so funny in their own way. And again, that action, like squib, shoot. Ed 209 versus RoboCop, like that was a real clash. I just love the tone of the first movie. I had a newfound appreciation of the practical effects when they took that helmet off. And I was like, everything about this movie shouldn't work, and it works so well. And like the reboot, none of it works, and it's like, what? I don't know why that is, but like, yeah. Ultimately, what I'm saying is that the movie shouldn't exist because no one's interested in it. Like Gary Oldman may be the most interesting. Michael Keaton is possibly a close second, but like RoboCop's not. So if you make a movie called RoboCop and RoboCop's boring, I don't want your movie, and it should not exist.
Fair enough. Yeah, I'm not gonna keep anybody in suspense here. I don't like the reboot at all. I'm a huge RoboCop fan. It's one of my favorite movies of all time, and to see it done a disservice like this is just, it feels like a slap in the face. They didn't understand like the source material at all. I mean, what made RoboCop work was it was so based in that satire, and to ignore that completely and to make this serious movie was just a huge misstep. And to, overcomplicate the plot and to like really focus on the tech and just how cool the tech is, and was just boring, and I didn't really care. I wasn't rooting for anybody. I didn't understand who the villain was until the end. I didn't like the portrayal of RoboCop at all. I thought it was a huge mistake to show his face constantly and have him talk like a normal dude, and he doesn't have that robotic monotone kind of talk that like Weller did in the original. And I don't know what they were thinking. I honestly have no idea what they were thinking. I know it's not entirely the director's fault. It was a lot of studio pressure because the budget was so high. So they really wanted to make sure they got their money back. So they didn't let him do like a lot of the things that he wanted to do. So yeah, studio, you have really fucked this one up. This movie should absolutely not exist. The original RoboCop, not a perfect movie, but one of my favorite movies.
Sure.
Stay away from this reboot.
Yeah. I mean, it's the simple things, right? Like, again, rewatching the original RoboCop, like little things were just like checking off for me, like the way the gun moved. I talked about it earlier, but like, there's just something really cool about the firing action on that gun. And then you take that gun, you make it just as big, and you make it like a taser. Come on, man, get out of here! Get out of here! Something's got to a hand's got to get blown off. Someone's got to. I want my pound of flesh, and I don't get it from this reboot. And yeah, like you said, I'm sure the director definitely wanted to try something different. I don't know, like when you make a movie like this, like that cheesy, like almost like uncanny valley, like jokey, like anchors, like newscasters are just like, "Hey, Bob, and here's to you," like that would probably help kind of bring this in. But having Samuel L. Jackson basically occupy his space like a villain, who are we supposed to pay attention to?
Yeah, super confusing.
Not a great movie. Yeah, totally skip.
Yeah, that satire is so important. Again, the screenplay writer of the reboot, Joshua Zitermer, he based his script on an original draft by Edward Neumeier and Michael Miner. And that original draft, like I said, when Paul Verhoeven read it, he didn't like it because it didn't have any of the satire, it didn't have any of the humor. It was super serious, and he thought it was stupid. But for some reason, in 2014, the studio's like, no, this is good. Let's do it serious.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
Bad. Shame on you, studio. Shame on you.
There's no excuse because, like, I've seen RoboCop. You've seen RoboCop. I'm not saying I'm a director, but, like, I think I would try to, like, what makes that movie work is the levity and the darkness. And I think I would try to, like, go over the top and, like, I would almost like Saw style the depths, right? Like, like the, you know, like classic like Schwarzenegger, like
yeah, like Running Man is what I was thinking.
Yeah. To chill out, you know what I mean? Let off some steam, Bennett. That type of stuff. I think that would serve this movie really well. And they just tried to make this like a wife concerned about her husband, who's not quite a man, not quite a robot. She's like, nah. Like, if you want to watch that, go watch Ex Machina. Like, that's a fun movie. That's also dark.
That's a lot better.
A lot better. Yeah, this was just a damn shame. And, like, the motorcycle wasn't even that cool.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about the motorcycle. Yeah, I didn't care for the motorcycle that much. Like, I guess it's cool. It just looked too much like Batman. We're wearing the black. We got the motorcycle. We're pretty much Batman from The Dark Knight. No, give me the cop car that always bottoms out every time it leaves the police station.
Dude,
I
that part
love
was
that.
so sick. I'm like, this is a terrible design. It just keeps scraping the body.
So good.
Yeah.
So good. For the absurd world that they created, it is a perfect little touch there.
Yeah.
Straight down at the bottom.
Even like, you know, speaking of satire, like Kenny's body falling on the new Delta City, like, you know, mock-up is like, that's phenomenal. Like, that's failure just like encompassed in this one little action. Subtlety is not the right word for RoboCop.
Well, that's what we thought about the RoboCop films. Do you agree with us? Do you disagree with us? Did we miss anything? Definitely let us know in the comments. We have thick skin. Don't be afraid of letting us know how you really feel. What are we going to do next time, Reggie?
Well, our next episode is going to be a little different. It's actually a bit of a celebration. So if you just watched this episode, you've seen the 50th episode of Retro versus Remake.
What?
And with that being said, we've been through a lot. We've been through figuring out the production of this show, sort of how we want every episode to flow, what type of movies we want to watch. And we got through that part. Then we had to figure out how to navigate a global pandemic. And so far, we've gone through that point, and I think that it'd be really cool for us to sort of recap, go back and look at some of the movies that we saw, discuss things a little bit, and just really celebrate the fact that Retro versus Remake is still kicking, and I'm sure we got at least another 50 episodes.
Absolutely. So we're going to go over some of the movies we liked, some of the movies we didn't like. At 50 episodes, that's over 100. Not over. That is exactly 100 movies. I know my math. So plenty of stuff to talk about. Yeah, it's just a celebration episode next time. So hopefully you'll join us for that. And maybe it'll be in person, or both of us.
Ooh. That's true. If we follow CDC protocols and we get vaccinated, if we're good little boys and girls, maybe me and you can do this in person.
All right. Well, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. If you're on YouTube, be sure to leave a comment, leave us a like, subscribe. If you're on iTunes, if you give us a 5-star review, leave a nice comment. That would greatly help us grow. We're also on social media at Retro vs. Remake on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram.
Yep.
Reggie.
And even Spotify. So, yeah, this is always a lot of fun. We've been seeing an uptick in some of the comments. We've been having fun with those. And, yeah, this is a lot of fun to do. So I'm looking forward to our next episode where, we go over some of the things that we've done so far.
Yeah, a little reflection. That's always nice. All right. Yeah. I'm Dan Bulick.
I'm Reggie Parker.
And this has been another episode of Retro vs. Remake. Dun, 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 dun.
Dun, dun.